northwards, and then once again across the south we are expecting some heavy downpours here, but it won't be a total washout. There will still be some bright, if not sunny spells at times, particularly across central areas of England. Now temperatures are fairly similar across the south, highs of 15, but elsewhere feeling that little bit cooler. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Dancing professional and entrepreneur AJ Pritchard. AJ, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Last saw you when you looked exactly the same as you did now a few years ago. Are you shocked by this news?
I think they're iconic, aren't they, Tess and Claude? But I think, like, people kind of worry, like, is this the magic of the show that's missing? But I think the magic of Strictly is the pros, the crew, the hair, the makeup, everything that it is. But I think my one worry is making sure that when you're going to, like, replace somebody like Tess and Claude, it needs to be somebody that is quirky, original. Like, let's take, like, French and Saunders. Like, you're thinking of yourselves now, aren't you? It's that thing, because they are so well-placed to bounce off each other. And I think that's what their role is. Like, they do it so perfectly. That is the scary part. How do you replace such an iconic double act, a duo?
And they've been at the core of the show for such a long time, starting off in different positions, but both there for 20-odd years. I mean, it's just an extraordinary... Does this sort of score or underline some of the troubles that the show has had in the last few years? A few scandals with participants, viewing numbers down a little bit. Have we passed peak Strictly?
I don't think so. I think the one thing with a show like Strictly is you're going to have different viewings over each year. You're going to see that kind of... Maybe you could say it's slightly plateaued at the moment, but I do feel like with the right cast, the right celebrities coming in, the right pros, like, it is so addictive. And when you suddenly sit down to watch it for, like, half an hour, you're like, OK, I'm attached to this journey now. I want to see how this is going to progress. I think that's the secret to these shows, really casting that celebrities and the pros themselves to really make it like, oh, I'm attached to that person now. I'm invested. I have to. My dinner plans have changed now because I need to watch Strictly tonight.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning and welcome to this special Remembrance Sunday programme here on GB News.
Over the course of this morning, we're going to bring you full coverage of events at the Cenotaph, where we expect to see their Majesties, the Prince and Princess of Wales, as well as key figures from the world of politics.
Our reporters are on the ground at events across the country, speaking to service personnel from the armed forces and, of course, veterans.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow, we gave our today. Here at Horse Guards Parade, 10,000 veterans and military personnel are lining up, ready to march past the Cenotaph.
Well, outside the Cenotaph, thousands of people are gathering here to join with the King as he leads the nation in a 2 minutes of silence at 11 o'clock.
Rehearsals are now over, PAs are now being tested here at Belfast for the main event, which will take place just after 10 o'clock. Northern Ireland will remember those that gave their lives to defend the UK.
Here in the studio in London, we'll be joined by experts to reflect and to discuss today's events, providing detail on the parades and ceremonies that are taking place as we observe at 11 o'clock the national 2-minute silence.
Thank you for joining us as we remember. I'm Camilla Tominey.
And I'm Michael Portillo. This is Remembrance Sunday on GB News.
Welcome to this special programme this morning. Michael, lovely to be with you. Who do you think of on Remembrance Sunday?
Well, I was Secretary of State for Defence, and I suppose I most think of the people that I knew who were serving at the time. I was fortunate, actually. I served during a time when the casualties amongst the British forces were fairly minimal, but nonetheless, I do remember. But I'm old enough also to think back to the Second World War. My father was not a participant because he was in the Spanish Civil War, not in the Second World War. But of course, you know, when I was growing up, fathers, brothers, grandfathers of people that I knew had been involved. They'd served, they'd been prisoners of war, some had died. So all of those people, I think, will be in my mind today. And what about you?
I think about my grandfather, Ronald Desborough, who was a Royal Mariner. And he, after the Second World War, he was a teacher. And every day of his life, he wore his Royal Navy tie. And he was extremely proud to have served. Funnily enough, I have a little war story because my grandmother, Ronald's wife, was called Vera. And my mother was born in 1947 when my grandfather had come back. And they called her Lynn because they loved the idea of having Vera Lynn commemorated in the house. So we think of all of those service personnel. It's a very, very special day. And we're going to be speaking to lots of very, very special guests as we follow the events from now until that minute silence at 11.
The royal family and the Prime Minister will honour the fallen with a 2-minute silence at 11 this morning.
Services are going to be taking place around the country. We'll be live until 1 o'clock speaking to veterans, serving personnel and, of course, experts as we take you through the key moments. Joining us now from Horse Guards Parade is GB News national reporter Jack Carson.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, here at Horse Guards Parade, as you'll just be able to see behind me and around us, these are some of the 10,000 people that are gathering here, ready to march past the cenotaph after that 2-minute silence takes place. We'll just show you, shall we, just everyone here that's coming together. And it is just one of the most wonderful sights here on Remembrance Sunday as these commemorations take place. These are people from 341 different armed forces and civilian associations. This is the Royal British Legion's event. They organise this event, and it's just wonderful to see so many people displaying their medals proudly on their coats and on their blazers, and so nice for those moments, those small little moments of reunion that we see. People that maybe spot each other with a medal in common, a military cap badge in common. People really doing what this day is all about, coming together to remember, to reflect on those that have lost. Of course, this year has been such a poignant year with VE Day and VJ Day 80, those commemorations which have taken place across the country this year, making this such a special year as this is, of course, the 80th Remembrance Day since World War II ended across Europe and across into the Far East as well. There are such many wonderful people here today. There are 6 101-year-olds expected to march past the cenotaph this year, including Second World War veteran Arthur Oborne, who is the oldest. We've also got one of the last surviving Chindits, Sid Machin, who's 101. He, of course, is one of the last of the Chindit Society. He, of course, attended the British Legion's VJ Day 80 event here as part of those commemorations at the Royal British Legion as well. And also one of the youngest marchers this year is 8-year-old Evie Roots from Scotty's Little Soldiers. And, of course, they here in their yellow and black scarves, of course, the colours that, of course, their fathers would have worn in their own service. But it's them who are the poignant reminder of the conflicts of recent times that, of course, today is so much about as well. There are so many veterans here, serving personnel here at Horse Guards Parade today, who are remembering very specific people. We spoke earlier on to 3 men from the Hubbard's family. This is the first time that they're all going to march together. They all served in Afghanistan. They said to us the very specific names. These people here are all part of that military family. They don't forget who they want to remember today. And in those 2-minute silence that we'll see later on there on Whitehall, those people will be remembered, and these 10,000 people are all part of today's events.
Thank you very much, Jack. Wonderful detail and colour there. Certainly, streets of London this morning at about 8 a.m. were fairly full, I would say, of veterans who were making their way towards the cenotaph in London. Some of them joining taxis at railway stations, where I think on this day the taxi drivers give them a free ride if they see them in their berets and wearing their medals. And joining us now from Parliament Square is GB News national reporter Will Godley. Will?
Michael, yeah, good morning. It's very sunny. It's a beautiful day here in Parliament as thousands of people are gathering outside the cenotaph for this 2 minutes of silence led by the King at 11 o'clock this morning. Everyone for different reasons of why they're here today, but everyone with similar significance and a reason to remember. Let's come and speak to some of the people standing here today. Colin Allison, thanks for joining us on GB News. How come you're here today?
Our son is actually marching the parade, so we've come down to watch him march in the parade. He's a pilot with EasyJet, so he's been selected to come and do that. Also, my dad and my uncle were in the Irish Guards for a long time, and my great-grandfather won a military medal in the First World War, so quite a lot of reasons to come and visit today and pay respects.
My dad was a Bevan boy in the Second World War, so...
Well, lots of reasons for you to be here and remember today. And let's now come and speak to Steve and Gail as well, because you've made the journey all the way down from Blackpool as well to be here today. Particularly important for you to be here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very important. Although we're not officially part of it, it's nice to just be here and taking the moment, taking the atmosphere, and hopefully meet up with some colleagues I've not seen for 32 years. So that'll be nice to bump into them after their marching past with the veterans. And it's, yeah, a very poignant moment. Great to be here.
I can see the medals on your coat. Who are you going to be remembering at 11 o'clock today?
I'll be remembering my grandfather and great-grandfather, who both served in wars past, and also more recently colleagues and former colleagues that I served with. And Gail will be remembering her grandfather, who was served with the Lancashire Fusiliers. So yeah, poignant day, and it's all about remembering. Yeah.
And Gail, how important do you think Remembrance Sunday is for Britain as a country as a whole?
It's very important for everybody to take in and be involved in the day, in remembering loved ones that are serving and that they've lost their lives.
And who are you going to be remembering today?
I'm going to be remembering my grandfather, who was in the Lancashire Fusiliers, Harry Potts.
And of course, the 2-minute silence led by King Charles. How important is it for him to lead the nation in this?
It's very important that the King's here. His unwavering support for the troops, those who are serving and those who've served in the past, and his dedication to the country. So he was at the Festival of Remembrance last night, and we were lucky enough to be there. And it shows his dedication to be here again this morning, leading the nation.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, both of you, on GB News. The King leading, of course, the nation in that 2 minutes of silence alongside Prince William and other members of the royal family here at 11 o'clock this morning.
Absolutely wonderful to hear from members of the public, to hear their reasons for being at the cenotaph today, their recollections, what they're going to be thinking about today, the importance that they ascribe to this Remembrance Sunday. Thanks to our reporters for interviewing them. We'll be hearing from those reporters throughout the programme.
Of course, and also, of course, we'll be watching royal events. I think it's interesting that the Festival of Remembrance saw Prince George attend in his father's absence. He's flying back from Brazil. He's been at the Earthshot Prize. So we look forward to seeing the royals that are going to appear at the cenotaph and lay wreaths, but also those at the balcony. Will we see the Wales children? We shall wait and see. We're also going to be doing a little bit of politics on the show, because coming up I'm going to be speaking to the Labour MP for Bassett Law, Joe White. I'm also going to be speaking to Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge. This is Remembrance Sunday on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Not much sunshine across the central and eastern Mediterranean. Heavy showers and thunderstorms expected here. But elsewhere across northern Europe, mostly dry, settled with some sunshine. Though we are expecting some showers on Monday across parts of Portugal, also northern areas of France. These could turn heavy at times. And as we drift our way eastwards across the Mediterranean, turning more and more unsettled, some heavy showers and thunderstorms here. Into next week, we should see more sunshine, and alongside the sun, there should be some warm temperatures too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Remembrance Sunday on GB News.
We are going to do a little bit of politics this morning, as is ever the case on a Sunday morning. We can't resist it before we get into the events outside the Cenotaph and around the country with our reporters. But joining us first is the Labour MP for Bassett Lord, Joe White. Lovely to see you this morning. Thank you for joining me. I'm sure you're off to your own remembrance commemorations in the constituency, so your time is very valuable to us. I'm not sure if you caught it, Miss White, but there was an interview in the week with World War II veteran Alec Penstone. He's 100 years old, and he was asked about the sacrifices he and his generation made back in the Second World War, and he questioned whether it was worth it. He said, looking at the state of Britain today, I do wonder. It's a rather depressing assessment from one of our veterans. What's your view?
I totally agree. We are in very difficult times right now with costs increasing and the threats we're seeing from overseas, from countries like Russia and Iran. So there are big worries. But I'm in government to try and put things right. And I'm certainly focused on rebuilding our NHS and ensuring the government puts the finances into our NHS. I want to see our young people have hope with the opportunities for skills. And I want to see new jobs being created, particularly in areas like mine. So I'm in Parliament to do a job of work, and I want this country to work in a much better, more constructive way than it has been happening.
I think Britain is famously very good at pomp and ceremony. We are very, very good at hosting these military events. I think in the national curriculum, rightly, there is an emphasis on teaching children about Remembrance Day. Michael and I have been recalling some of our own relatives that fought. My grandfather, who was a submariner. We've been speaking to people out and about commemorating this day, and they're also referring to fathers and grandfathers. Generationally, though, we are obviously losing serving veterans, and there is a distance now between your Gen Zs and your Gen Alphas and those who fought in the Second World War and other conflicts. There was a very worrying poll that was carried out by the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund earlier this year, which suggested that 44% of the British public didn't know what the Battle of Britain was, and only a third of 18 to 24-year-olds could identify it correctly. Are we doing enough to keep the education going where there isn't that familial tie with some of these important conflicts in our history?
Well, I've been into schools recently where children in primary school are being taught about the Second World War, and I have seen some amazing Remembrance Day parades and involvement by young people. Today I will be going to Retford, where I know the young people in the cadets and will be participating in the service. I also know that guides and brownies and scouts will also be participating, and that's very important as part of their understanding. And it's important that they continue to remember and understand the sacrifice that our ancestors made. And for them, it is a lifetime away, but more closely to them, there are people who served in Northern Ireland, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and so they need to understand that the sacrifices they made is for the safety of this country, and it is about defence. We are increasing our commitment to spending in defence by 5% of GDP by 2030, and it's imperative that young people are encouraged to join up into armed services as part of their future lives. And I've met with young Air Force cadets who've just recently joined the Air Force, and their patriotism and the reason why they're doing it is to serve this country.
Joe White, when I hear a veteran say that he's not sure whether it was worthwhile, I think he might be referring to, well, we all know that we fought for freedom, but many people now are worried about their freedom of speech. They feel terribly constrained about what they can say about public and political issues. And for that matter, we're now a country where we see displays of racial hatred on our streets. I think of the scenes at Aston Villa during this week. Do you not think that is what the veteran is possibly thinking about? That the country we have today is unrecognisable and the things that are happening are contrary to what those veterans fought for?
I think people do have a right to give their views, and I don't think there are any restrictions on what people have to say. What is concerning is that there has been a rise in racism, and that's what's not acceptable. When people who are working here from other countries and they're told to go home on a daily basis, in my view, they've crossed the line. I've met women who work in the local care home very recently. They came from Zimbabwe because there are vacancies and we have to have people to look after our older people who need care. And when they're faced with racism every day of the week, a line has been drawn. So people have a right to express their views and opinions, and I want to hear them. It's very important that MPs like myself are there to hear them, but we have to be careful, and when they cross a line that's not acceptable, then obviously we have to tell them that the law has to come into place and stop that from happening.
But don't we also have to be careful with the rhetoric around attempts to control immigration in this country? We know that the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is planning perhaps a Danish-style crackdown on asylum seeking, on illegal immigrants, on immigration in general. In Denmark, they've brought in a number of different measures. They insist that if you marry in that country and you're from abroad, you have to be over 24. They insist that you cannot claim benefits for 3 years or you won't be granted any leave to remain at all. They also have been very heavily deporting foreign criminals. They've been asking safe countries to take their immigrants back. And they've actually reduced asylum claims from 68,000 in 2023 to 2,200 this year. And yet your own Labour colleague, Nadia Whitcomb, has suggested that if we adopted such policies, they would be, quote, racist and far right.
So I very much welcome we have a Home Secretary. He's willing to look at every way of what we can do to reduce the number of people coming over here on boats. And so she's looking at what's happening in Denmark. And I think there's a British way of adopting some of those policies. For example, I think if you're having an asylum claim processed and you are giving refugee status, then you should cover the costs of those claims. And I think you can do that through having a loan system, a student loan type system in order to do that. I also believe that if you are accepted as a refugee, you should be expected to work and to contribute. I also think we should be looking at the fact that when somebody comes here, they're escaping terror and a terror regime in the country that they came from. And what should happen is that if there is a regime change, that those people should go back and they should help rebuild those countries using the skills that they've learned from this country or the skills they brought to this country and return to their families and help rebuild those countries. I think that's fair, appropriate and proper.
Joe White, final question. The Chancellor seems poised to drive a coach and horses through the Labour manifesto and put up income tax in the budget on November the 26th. How will the good people of Bassett Law react to that, do you think?
I think the Chancellor has to tell her story. She has to paint the picture of exactly why she is making the taking the actions and making the decisions she is, so that people understand. But my ask of the Chancellor is that she looks at those with deepest pockets who are able to do that. And I think there are things that can be done to ensure that we can move forward to protect the people in my constituency who work hard and contribute to the country so that we work effectively together.
Joe White, the Labour MP for Bassett Law, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.
And joining us now from Belfast is GBNews Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie. Dougie, hello.
Hello, Michael. Yes, welcome to Belfast. And of course, Belfast is a very special place for veterans because veterans here that joined up to the British Army very rarely could actually get home. It was a very dangerous thing to do in Northern Ireland because, of course, during the height of the Troubles, they faced death here in Northern Ireland when they come home. And one such man that did exactly that, Alan Aiken, joins me now. Alan, which regiment were you with?
Good morning, Dougie. I was with the 1st Battalion Irish Guards.
And why did you join up?
Dougie, I was born in 1969 in Belfast, you know, and all the way through my childhood I saw quite a few things happening throughout the Troubles. And I joined up in 1988, which happened to be a pretty bad year for the Troubles here and the legacy that we have in Northern Ireland. So I found myself sort of drifting away from what was sort of the norm, and it was either going to go one way or the other.
And of course, when you came home from places of war, you still had to watch what you were doing here.
Yes, it was very difficult to come home. Basically, you weren't sort of like supposed to like announce that you were part of the armed forces here in Northern Ireland, and I wasn't allowed home at all. You know, the powers to be within the military said, no, you're not allowed home because of the security threat against me and other serving soldiers that lived close by me here in Belfast.
Well, thank you for your service, sir. And you did tours in Iraq, I believe, and including some in other parts of the world. And really, thank you very much. Who will you be thinking of today?
Today is it's a very poignant day. There's a lot of lads that have lost throughout my service, you know, and others before, especially in the First, Second World War.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. That is one of the veterans that served abroad and had to come home to Northern Ireland. Most military people didn't have to face that when they came home, and it is amazing that per capita Northern Ireland still gives the most to the British forces.
Thank you very much indeed, Dougie Beattie.
Absolutely fascinating to hear these perspectives from Northern Ireland, and how lovely to hear Dougie saying "sir" to that serving soldier. Much more to come on this Remembrance Sunday. We'll be speaking to the Shadow Defence Secretary next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag, and we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Yeah, well, obviously you can't, on the one hand, say that the government is forcing everybody to go to work an hour early and then say people are welcome to go to work an hour earlier if they want to. As you say, Tom, there's a collective action problem. You know, people go to work at certain times, they have office hours, and those office hours are based on what everybody believes the time to be. So the point here is not that anybody believes that daylight savings actually creates more daylight. It just creates a daylight when people can actually enjoy it, and people tend to want their leisure and recreation after work rather than before work. It also has daylight saving time various health and well-being benefits. The reason that it was introduced during the First World War is, in fact, it does allow a certain amount of extra efficiency. You need less electricity, for example, in the evenings. You don't need to have the floodlights on during an afternoon football game and all the rest of it. So for health and well-being reasons, I'm very much in favour not just of keeping daylight saving time, but having it all year round.
But also, in terms of safety for women as well, it's better for us to be walking home if it's lighter and things like that, you know what I mean? When it's really dark, it does get dark quite quickly towards the winter months. There's no problem. I mean, what is the real reason as to why this would be a problem, Peter, for the clocks to change anyway? I mean, that's fine, isn't it? We all get used to it and then it comes back when the light sort of changes.
Well, collective madness is always a problem. When people do something stupid in very large numbers, it's worrying. I mean, I find it amusing now because it's obviously impossible to persuade people that this thing is as crazy as it is. You say things like, it's better for women to be able to walk down the street when it's light. Well, no doubt it is. But the street will remain as light or as dark as it would have been before, whether you fiddle with the clocks or whether you don't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning and welcome to this special Remembrance Sunday programme here on GB News.
Over the course of this morning, we will bring you full coverage of the events at the Cenotaph in London, where we shall see their Majesties and the Prince and Princess of Wales, along with key figures from the world of politics.
Our reporters are on the ground at events across the country, speaking to service personnel from the armed forces and, of course, veterans.
Here at Horse Guards Parade, 10,000 people are gathering, ready to march past the cenotaph. They are part of some 341 different military and civilian associations who will take part in today's events.
Here in Westminster, the King is preparing to lead the nation in a 2-minute silence when Big Ben strikes 11.
Yes, here in Belfast, many are starting to arrive. They are laying poppies, wreaths and little crosses as preparations are now in the final countdown to the actual event that will happen here at 11 o'clock.
In the studio, we'll be joined by experts to reflect upon and to discuss today's events, providing detail on the parades and ceremonies taking place as we observe at 11 o'clock the national 2-minute silence.
Thank you for joining us as we remember. I'm Camilla Tominey.
And I'm Michael Portillo. This is Remembrance Sunday on GB News. Shortly, we'll be joined by the Shadow Defence Secretary, James Cartledge.
So all that and much more to come with our expert panel. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good morning to you. 2 minutes past 10 here in the GB newsroom. The King will lead the nation in a 2-minute silence this morning to remember those who died in conflict. Charles, other members of the royal family and the Prime Minister will lay wreaths to honour the fallen at the cenotaph in central London. Around 10,000 armed forces veterans will take part in the Royal British Legion's march through Whitehall. Last night, the royals, including Prince George, paid tribute to those who lost their lives in conflict at the Festival of Remembrance in the Albert Hall. Services are also expected to take place across the UK, including Edinburgh, Belfast and Cardiff. The BBC is expected to apologise for the way in which a speech by President Trump was edited in an episode of Panorama. The concerns regard clips spliced together from sections of the US President's speech on January the 6th, 2021, the day of the Capitol Hill riots. It's understood the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, will provide a full response to the Culture, Media and Sport Committee on Monday. It's almost a week since The Telegraph reported that Michael Prescott, a former external advisor to the BBC's Editorial Standards Committee, raised concerns about misleading viewers over the summer. The government is set to launch an independent review into the rising levels of inactivity in young people. It's estimated the number of 16 to 24-year-old NEETs, those not in education, employment or training, has reached 940,000, with around a quarter blaming disability or long-term sickness. Work and Pensions Secretary Pat McFadden's described it as a crisis of opportunity. The inquiry will be led by former Labour Health Secretary Alan Milburn. Finally, the Philippines is bracing for a super typhoon less than a week after around 220 people were killed in a separate storm. Nearly 1 million people have been evacuated as the typhoon has intensified. It's approaching the east of the country. It's Feng Wong, the name of this one. It's caused power outages ahead of making landfall later with heavy rain and flooding forecast. Now, Typhoon Kalmegi hit the Philippines and Vietnam on Tuesday, flattening homes, knocking out power to millions. More than 100 people remain missing. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at midday.
Thank you, Aaron Armstrong.
As we prepare to mark events at the Cenotaph in London, we are joined by a very distinguished panel. Elsa Armstrong, welcome to GB News, and Sir Michael Ellis Casey, former Attorney General. Elsa, you're in quite a good position to come into this today. You used to work for the Archbishop of Canterbury, you used to work for Queen Elizabeth II. Tell me how important this day is in the calendar of the royal family.
I think it's probably the most significant day of the year for them. Of course, the King is the head of the armed forces, the Commander-in-Chief. He's a serving naval officer himself. And it's his opportunity to actually commemorate the most amazing armed forces that we have and to pay his respects. So it's hugely significant.
And Sir Michael, or Michael, if we will, on this
Of course.
There's obviously a political significance to this. We are going to see, as well as members of the royal family, members of government and senior figures in public life laying wreaths and taking part in this morning's commemorations. From a political perspective, of course, we try and keep partisanship aside on a day like today. But how significant is it for those people?
Oh, this is hugely significant, as Ailsa was saying. And that's indicated by the fact that it's perhaps the only annual event where every living former Prime Minister is expected to attend. And you'll see them all lined up behind the current Prime Minister on this occasion. There are very few other occasions where they are expected all en masse to attend. John Major, who of course first became Prime Minister in 1992, will be there, and all of the subsequent Prime Ministers up to Rishi Sunak.
All right, Michael Ellis, Ailsa Anderson, hold those thoughts. We'll come back to you in just a moment. We're going to do a little bit more politics now, because joining me and Michael is the Defence Secretary, Shadow Defence Secretary, I should say, James Cartledge. Lovely to see you this morning, Mr Cartledge. You've had quite a busy week representing Kemi Badenoch at PMQs on Wednesday, and we'll get on to that in just a moment. I did ask this of Joe White, your Labour counterpart, with regard to an interview that was given by World War II veteran Alec Penston in the week. He's 100 years old. He was asked about the sacrifice he and his generation made during the Second World War, and he did question whether it was worth it, judging by the state of Britain today. Some of that decline has occurred under the Tories' 14 years in power, hasn't it, Mr Cartledge?
Well, look, I think it's obviously deeply sad to hear that sentiment expressed. On a day like today, we honour all those who served our country, not just in the First and Second World War, but in wars subsequently, and who serve in the armed forces today. And I know that they do it because they believe in public service and they believe in duty and defending this country at a time of heightened threats. But I'll be the first to admit we did govern through some of the most challenging things faced by any UK government since the Second World War, a pandemic, and of course the return of war in Europe. And I'm actually very proud of the role that our party played in government, standing by Ukraine, helping them to survive that early onslaught from Russia, which if it hadn't done so, we'd be in an even more serious situation than we are now, possibly comparable to where we were at the start of the Second World War.
Can we speak about defence spending, though, because we currently have a target by this Labour government to reach 3% of GDP in the next Parliament. There's an expectation of reaching 3.5% of GDP by 2034 at the earliest. Actually, in real terms, defence spending under the Conservatives did fall by 22%. You inherited an army with 108,000 people in it, and then by 2024 it went down to 72,510. That's the smallest army since the Napoleonic era. I mean, that's simply not good enough when it comes to supporting our defences by the last Tory government, is it?
Well, as I said, I'm very proud of what we did to stand by Ukraine, and I'll come to the spending in a minute. But I do think people have to understand no other country did that in Europe, what we did. We stood by Ukraine, and if they'd fallen, we could have been faced with an extremely serious situation. We did that in the Ministry of Defence through Ben Wallace under the leadership of Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. I'm incredibly proud of that achievement. That was done by us as a country. That was an act of defence, indirectly, if you like, supporting Ukraine against Russia. So that really, really matters, because you judge governments by what they actually do in practice. But in terms of spending, it's absolutely true to say in 1985, when Gorbachev became president of the USSR, we were spending 5% GDP on defence. It fell every year under successive governments. The last time it was 3% was 1996. It then went to 2.5% in 2010. We came to power with a note that there's no money left, and we had to make some very, very difficult decisions. We had to save the country from going bankrupt, quite frankly. But by doing that, we were able to step in when we had the pandemic and when we had the problems with energy prices after the invasion of of Ukraine, and defence spending did start rising in 2019. But the fact is, at that time, let's be honest, no one was screaming out saying, look, spend more on defence because Russia in some years from now will invade Ukraine. You have to adjust to the world as it is. And that invasion, that land invasion by Russia, the first since the Second World War, has changed things fundamentally. We have to adapt to that, and that does mean now more defence spending and difficult decisions on where that comes from.
I do remember some people screaming out for more spending on defence, military chiefs, probably the gentleman sitting next to me here who was once Defence Secretary, and others. What would the Tories spend on defence as a proportion of GDP?
So we think that the government should go to 3% this Parliament, and that is because we think the threat is very serious. The threat is now. The Strategic Defence Review, which is the government's big policy paper on defence, talked about threats and then, dealing with them in the 2030s. We think that's far too far away, because the principle, which I think your viewers will understand, is very straightforward. If you're worried about threat, the best thing to do is to deter it, to make it less likely to translate into an actual attack on, our allies or even on this country. So that's incredibly important. But we recognise spending 3%, getting to that, will require very difficult decisions. And I think the biggest concern here, when you talk about defence spending, is actually what happened in that Labour vote on welfare. Labour were going to bring forward a bill, as you will recall, to reform welfare, but unfortunately they bottled it in front of their own backbenchers, because that budget on sickness and disability benefits is going to go to 100 billion this Parliament. The money has to come from there. We've got to get the benefit bill down and use it to fund defence, but also supporting the productive sector of our economy through tax cuts and so on. Because Labour's lost control of public spending and welfare, they cannot afford to deliver the higher spending. That's the concern we all have today.
James, on Remembrance Sunday, as people about the Second World War, they think about Vera Lynn, they think about the white cliffs of Dover. And what we see on a daily basis is hundreds and now thousands of people arriving in small boats. And people think, goodness, this country can't even defend its beaches against illegal immigrants. It's simply unwilling to take the necessary action to stop that happening. Is that not an awful image to present to people on Remembrance Sunday?
I think it is an awful image, but look, I totally get the frustration that the public feel about this issue. It has to be said, whenever we talk about defence, there will be those who say, well, hold on a minute, what about the small boats? I think the key thing to remember is that in dealing with the small boats, the government of any colour has to act within the law, so it can only deal with the issue if the law allows it to. And what we found in government, much to my enormous frustration, I went round and round the House of Commons many times voting on Rwanda and all the other plans we had, and each time they got defeated in the House of Lords, or they got challenged in the courts, even at the very last minute, and it was it's very difficult. So it's frustrating for us in government, but ultimately very, very frustrating for the British public who want this issue dealt with. And my main point would be, look, Labour came to power promising to smash the gangs. They opposed Rwanda, so they do now own the consequences of that decision. But Kemi Badenoch has been clear, we need to come out with our own policies too. So she said at conference we would leave the ECHR so that we really can deal with this issue, because my concern is whatever Labour do, unless they're willing to make that really big change, they'll always get defeated in the courts.
Okay.
Because, as I say, it is terrible for the public. They don't like this issue, and I totally sympathise, but the government has to act within the law, and unless the law won't be able to.
James Cartledge, I'll just see if you can still hear me, because I think we're having a little bit of trouble with the broadcast there. A final question just on David Lammy, who you were opposite at the dispatch box on Wednesday. There was a row brewing about how many escaped prisoners there actually are in the UK right now. How many do you think there are?
I don't know, because I asked the Justice Secretary. You think it's a reasonable thing to ask them. They do run the justice system, and he didn't make any attempt to answer whatsoever. And so I was very frustrated by that. I think the public were, judging by the messages I've received. I think what the statistics show is there's been, I think, 262 releases in error, as they call it in the statistics set, but basically accidentally let out of prison in the last year. But what worries me above all, there were 90 that were violent or sexual offenders. Now that is incredibly worrying for the public. So to quote David Lammy to me, he needs to get a grip.
Get a grip, indeed, or consider his position, James Cartledge, finally.
Well, look, there's a big question about the ministerial code. As a minister, David Lammy is duty-bound to be transparent with Parliament. And had I known that when I was asking those questions, he apparently had a statement about that issue at hand, and he chose not to give any answers at all, I find that extraordinary.
So sorry, are you saying he's broken the ministerial code?
I certainly think there's a big question for him to answer, and when Parliament returns this week, on Tuesday, we'll have justice questions and hopefully other opportunities to hold him to account, because my final point is we then requested to him to come back to Parliament later in the day. I don't know if you saw this, I did a point of order,
Yes.
colleagues did points of order. He needed to come back and clarify, and he refused to do so. He did a runner, and that's not acceptable.
OK, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. Shadow Defence Secretary James Cartledge.
Coming up, Jack Carson will be joined by a special guest at Horse Guards Parade, so stay tuned for that. And our expert panel will join us again as we look ahead to events at the Cenotaph.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Remembrance Sunday here on GB News.
Joining us now from Horse Guards Parade in London is GB News national reporter Jack Carson. Hello, Jack.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, you can see around us just how busy it's getting. Of course, 10,000 people are going to be taking part in the Royal British Legion's march past the Cenotaph. Of course, they're all going to be lining up on Whitehall shortly, but Aaron Marshall, Flying Officer Aaron Marshall, joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. What does today mean to you? Why is being part of today so special?
I think it's so important to look back with all the veterans who are standing here and the amount of history and what they've done for us to be able to stand here and think about yourself and what you could possibly give the country and what my service would then mean, essentially. So for me, it's a great time of reflection to think about my own family history and also those here who have done for us.
And tell us a little bit about your family history. So you had grandparents, which I guess really have been quite an inspiration to you.
Absolutely. My grandfather went off to fight in the paratroop regiment, and my grandmother was a nurse here in London during the war with the British Red Cross. And for them to have served, and then ultimately for me to serve, was just such an inspiration for what they did. I could just do my small part and serve and pay back some of that.
I mean, your granddad was a paratrooper. I mean, that's obviously just a special and exciting thing for him, and your own kind of grandmother as part of the Red Cross. So how did they come together? How did they come to meet?
They met by pure chance on Brighton Pier before they went off before my grandfather went off to war. They sort of smitten with each other at the start, and they communicated through letters, and they both waited until after the war, where on his return they got married, and that was that.
So tell us a little bit about your own service. What brought you into service, and I guess tell us about that sense of duty that you must feel doing your job.
So my grandfather really inspired me. Although he didn't talk about the war, he gave me little nuggets of it or what it was like, and he gave me books to read about it. And I think from an early age that inspired me to be able to maybe have some of those stories that he had, that he did share about basic training and the camaraderie. You only have to look around you here now to know I made the right choice. The eagle-eyed ex-warrant officers over there of the RAF giving me the one service. So I mean, that's fantastic, and that's what it's all about. And that pride to put the uniform on is just so worth it, and I'm ever so grateful to my grandfather and grandmother for giving me that.
Flying Officer Aaron Marshall, sir, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on Horse Guards. You can see all around us, Camilla and Michael, just how many people are here, all of them today. Such a special occasion for them to be able to taking part in today's events.
Thank you, Jack. I love the spirit with which he is speaking about the pride he has in wearing the uniform, but also following in his grandfather's and familial footsteps. Well, let's go to Northern Ireland now, where GB News' Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, has been speaking to veterans. Dougie.
Thanks for letting you know.
Well, good morning, and yes, we're here at Belfast Cenotaph. As you can see, things are starting to get very busy here, and joining me now is actually the Veterans Commissioner for Northern Ireland, David Johnson. David, what is the main talking point in Northern Ireland with veterans today?
Well, there's no question. The main talking point at the minute is the new legislation that's coming in. It's a big concern for veterans, but listen, today is Remembrance Sunday. It's a sacred date in the calendar for our nation, and indeed for individuals. It's personal and national in many ways, and I think for many soldiers today and armed forces personnel, they'll be remembering conflicts they've been involved in. They'll be remembering colleagues who did not return, who lost their lives, those carrying the scars of service, and indeed they'll remember back perhaps to relatives, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and indeed mothers who served in our forces. So it's personal in that sense, but it's also national. Our country comes together and we remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country.
Northern Ireland gives quite a lot to the armed forces, doesn't it?
There's no question. Actually, in terms of per head of capita, Northern Ireland gives the most in terms of personnel to the armed forces, and indeed that should always be remembered in terms of the sacrifice. Northern Ireland is never found wanting when the armed forces need those to step into the military. And indeed, I served in Iraq in 2004. I remember being there for the Remembrance service that year, and when you think of the amount of Irish regiments from the island of Ireland who served in the First World War, it was very humbling. So this island, and indeed Northern Ireland, has certainly answered the call when our nation has needed it, and today we remember that.
I was speaking to a man earlier on, a veteran, who had said that when he joined up in Northern Ireland, he found it hard to come home during the height of the Troubles. Is that now somewhat different in Northern Ireland?
So society has definitely moved on. You know, we don't have people being shot and killed on the streets, security force losing their lives. But for many who serve for decades, either here as part of our banner, it is difficult just to forget the 20, 30 years of difficulty that they went through. And indeed, for those that served abroad, in many cases they come home to be heroes and be recognised for their service. But in Northern Ireland there was that constant threat and therefore it was difficult for those who served overseas coming home.
David, thank you very much. Well, things will be getting underway here very shortly. As you can see around me, many crowds now starting to appear, and we will stay with you throughout the day.
Thank you very much, Dougie from Belfast. I'm finding these perspectives from Northern Ireland most interesting. That recollection there of how many from the south of Ireland fought with British forces during World War I. And then for many decades after that, they struggled to be recognised for the service that they had given and the sacrifice that they had made. I think more recognised today. As we prepare to mark events at the Cenotaph, we're rejoined in the studio by our expert panel, the former Attorney General and constitutional expert Sir Michael Ellis KC, and the former Press Secretary to Queen Elizabeth II, Ailsa Anderson.
Right, let's just look through the timetable of events as we expect the events to unfold in the next hour or two. So at 10:30, we're expecting members of the royal family to arrive at the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Then at 10:52, the procession leaves the front door of that office building and, of course, takes position up near the Cenotaph, led by the crossbearer and the choir. Then at 10:54, we're going to see the procession of parliamentary crown dependencies, UK overseas territories, Commonwealth Armed Forces and Civilian Services representative, led by the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. They will leave the building. It's all, as ever, planned to complete clockwork. Minute by minute, we've got the events unfurling in front of us. At 10:58, the royal family, followed by the equerries, proceed to the north side of the Cenotaph for that 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock. That will be ended. It will be marked by the firing of a gun. That will end the silence, and of course then the last post will be sounded by the buglers of the Royal Marines. At 11:03 we will then see His Majesty the King lay a wreath, followed by other members of the royal family. At 11:07 the Prime Minister will lay his wreath, followed by leaders of political parties, the Speaker of the House of Commons, the Lord Speaker and Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs, and of course the Secretary of State for the Home Department. That's on behalf of intelligence agencies. And on the procession and indeed the wreath laying and the marches will go. So Michael and Ailsa, let's just have a chat about the significance of particularly younger royals. We were just speaking earlier to Joe White and James Cartledge about the importance of remembering. Do we do enough in schools? We've also seen servicemen and women there talk about how they were inspired to sign up by their own fathers, mothers, grandparents, etc. We see in Prince George now the future king appearing at that festival of remembrance last night, which you and I have attended on many occasions, Ailsa. It's a lovely, lovely event at the Royal Albert Hall. It is significant, I think, to see George there, as he is going to turn 13 next year, go to big school, no doubt. He's taking on a more significant role, as we would expect, as he is prepared to follow in his father and grandfather's footsteps.
Absolutely, and of course we saw him front and centre during the VE Day celebrations to mark the 80th anniversary this year. So I think it is significant that he's doing more and more official engagements. Trooping the colour, for example, again, he's made a significant contribution there. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays a role today. And, of course, his father wasn't there yesterday. He was travelling back from the Earthshot prizes.
He's had a busy week, hasn't he?
He sure has.
He's been in Brazil with Sir Keir Starmer and the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, both of whom will be back here with the Prince to take part in these commemorations.
Michael, it's been a rather grim autumn for the royal family, actually, and I was just wondering, now that we've reached Remembrance Sunday, I'm just thinking to myself, do you think there was an urgency in the royal family to clean out the stables before this day, in which the royal family is very much on display to the public and very much doesn't want to have distractions that take people's minds off the act of remembrance?
Well, I think, Michael, this is a very important day for the royal family, as we were saying before, and they certainly wouldn't want any distractions. And I think it's possible that we may even see Prince George today on the balcony for the first time. It certainly would be very nice to do that. It's interesting because he's only 12 years of age, and if you look back at the records, the late Queen Elizabeth II, who exemplified in a long life duty and service, her first recorded public duty was when she was 16 or 17 years of age. The same for the King. His first duty, apparently, as a boy at Gordonston, at the age of 16, he went to a garden party in Scotland at the Palace of Holyrood House. So if we do see Prince George, and it's a big if, We may not. But we saw him last night at the annual Festival of Remembrance, and it's a very early start. And that is an exemplification of the duty and service that we expect of our royal family. Princess Anne actually won't be on parade today because she's on duty in Australia. Yes. She arrived in Sydney yesterday. And as you were saying, the Prince of Wales, Prince William, has flown back yesterday from a long flight from Brazil, where he was at the Earthshot Prize. So the royal family's duties continue apace, but you'll find that this is an event where there are very few absences. The late Queen, in 70 years, I think she missed a couple, which is a pretty good ratio. That's an example of how important this event is to the royals and to the national psyche. It's extraordinary to think this cenotaph is now 105 years old. When the original structure was put in 1919, it was a temporary structure. It was actually designed, it was made of wood, and it was designed as a temporary edifice so that a parade could take place marking the end of World War I. The public loved it so much that they demanded it be made permanent, and Lutyens was asked to design one in Portland stone, and it was unveiled in 1920, almost exactly on the 11th of the 11th, 1920, by King George V. And so Lutyens actually very generously dispensed with his fee for designing it. And it's been an extremely popular memorial ever since. Cenotaph, from the ancient Greek, empty tomb. And
when you look closely at it, it is a pylon, it is a support, and on top of it is indeed a tomb, a representation of a tomb.
Yes.
And that represents, as you say, the empty tomb. I think in 1920 was the dedication of the unknown soldier. Of course, so many people from the First World War have been buried very close to where they died. Therefore, it was thought that the national act of commemoration should be an unknown soldier, a representative of all of those who died. And I always wish to say on these days that we are remembering not only British servicemen and women, we're remembering Commonwealth servicemen.
That's absolutely right, Michael.
Of whom many thousands gave their lives in both world wars.
In fact, more than 50%, just over 50% of all casualties were of Empire and Commonwealth personnel in World War II. So, and of course, this memorial marks the conflicts post-World War II as well. Korea, Malaya, Northern Ireland, Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on. And it's been emulated around the world, by the way. This ceremony has been so fixed in the consciousness of so many countries that other countries emulate this process around the world, and it's a very moving ceremony. Hasn't changed very much, actually, even in the music that's chosen, since 1930. It's almost untouched.
Well, speaking of music, Michael, we are seeing scenes now from the National Memorial up in Staffordshire, I believe, the Arboretum. Because, of course, this isn't just a London-centric event. There are events taking place across the country, all four corners of Great Britain. We've, of course, spoken to Dougie Beattie in Northern Ireland, which has got added significance in light of recent events involving the Legacy Act and the historic prosecution of Northern Ireland veterans. But here is the scene up in Staffordshire as royals and politicians and dignitaries gather at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in order to prepare for this procession. Michael, you've been behind the scenes there. You were a Defence Secretary. You know how this plays out. What happens at the point that the royals arrive? They're mingling with politicians, are there, at this point?
No, my recollection is not. I might bring Elsa in again here. No, I think we, the politicians, were put into one part of the Foreign Office and the royal family into another part of the Foreign Office. But nonetheless, although it's a very solemn occasion, it's rather strange that when politicians of different parties are put together in the same room, they feel a certain excitement because they don't get that many opportunities to talk to people from other parties. And so there's a bit of bonhomie, a bit of camaraderie that goes on.
Is it false bonhomie?
No, I don't think it is. You know, I think parliamentarians are quite well disposed to like each other if they possibly can. Of course, it's much more difficult to like people in your own party.
Especially if you're a Conservative, Michael.
With people across the aisle, you know, it's much more easy. What do you think the scene is with the royal family? Do you think they're also using this opportunity to catch up on news, because you've got to talk about something in the minutes before you go downstairs.
And they do. They have such a busy schedule with sort of public engagements that they don't often get together. So they do take that opportunity to do a bit of chit-chatting and catching up and catching up on family events. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Also, they'll be mindful, won't they? I mean, the likes of Prince William particularly, of having lost recently both of his own grandparents, who had such a significant role in these sorts of commemorations.
Absolutely. And also, his grandfather obviously was a serving naval officer.
Yes, mentioned in dispatches.
Absolutely, a real war hero.
Battle of Matapan, I believe, from my royal history, Elsa. Yeah. But of course, it's a moment of personal reflection for the royals. And one assumes as well that William will be reflecting on his own service.
Yes.
And was somewhat prevented, wasn't he? Somewhat restricted from doing tours of duty as his brother Prince Harry did in Afghanistan because of his senior status in the royal family as a future king.
I'm looking at the pictures. These are now from the cenotaph. You can see the cenotaph in the background of those pictures. And one very striking thing, I think... Oh, sorry, that's actually a statue I'm looking at there. It's not cenotaph. One of the very striking things is the weather. Now, the weather may not seem like a great topic of conversation, but I think it is quite important. Firstly, it enables the veterans to remove their overcoats. We can see them then in their very smart blazers, their regimental blazers. We can see them displaying their medals. Also, one's always rather concerned about the health of the older veterans. And it's not too cold today, and certainly in the bright sunshine, they're going to be feeling the warmth of that sunshine. And it does just make the most magnificent setting for today's national ceremony to see it beautifully lit by sunlight.
Those are the scenes outside the cenotaph. It's worth saying that in the background, the footage we don't see is the preparations that are made for the service that is going to take place just after the 2 minutes silence at 11. There are, would you believe, a number of King's Scouts who are giving out the orders of service, making sure everything is prim and proper there as they prepare to accept royalty. Now, apparently they're representing 600,000
They are.
Michael. And these are the top scouts. So these are 16 to 25-year-olds who have been given the King's Scouting Award. So let's be honest, these are young people that you do want with you in a crisis.
Yes.
You do want with you pitching a tent, lighting a fire and making sure you're OK.
These are the leaders of tomorrow, I think.
They are the leaders of tomorrow.
Absolutely. And they no doubt could light a fire without any incendiaries. I think you'll see them actually mounting a guard of honour at the door of the Foreign Office when everyone comes out. But at the moment, they're giving out orders of service to the crowd, and they are, if you like, the elite of the Scouts, as you were saying, Camilla. There are 600,000 in the UK, millions around the world, of course, but if you win the King's Scout Award, you really are the creme de la creme of scouting.
You're a Bear Grylls wannabe, although I note that, of course, Bear Grylls has stood down and they are led by Chief Scout Dwayne Fields. And it's significant for the Royals, again, because there's a connection to the Princess of Wales, Elsa.
Yes, absolutely.
Who has got her own woggle, so to speak.
More than I have, that's for sure.
Well, you do strike me as a former Girl Guide, Elsa. I'm not.
You may say that, Camilla. I couldn't possibly comment.
we were talking, we just mentioned there the service, which will follow the 2-minute silence. Service will be conducted by the Lord Bishop of London, and the Lord Bishop of London will shortly be...
The Archbishop of Canterbury.
Archbishop of Canterbury. And you served a past Archbishop of Canterbury.
I did.
Well, would you like to make any comments about that?
I had an extraordinary time serving Justin Welby when he was the Archbishop of Canterbury. And I think Sarah Mullally, who I do know, will be absolutely inspirational. I think she will show great leadership and great strength in a time where actually the world is a troubled place. And I think we do need strong leaders, especially from a faith-based perspective. And I think she will do a superb job.
It's interesting, isn't it, that not that much has been made of the fact that she is indeed a woman. I mean, it's unprecedented, it's historic.
Absolutely.
But maybe we've got to the point now where it doesn't merit as much comment as it might have 20, 30 years ago.
I think here, absolutely. I think the Anglican Communion worldwide, actually there has been more comment, especially in African countries who don't necessarily support female bishops. So I think, yes, there's more chatter overseas than it would be here.
I think what's quite interesting is that she's the 106th Archbishop of Canterbury, but actually the Archbishop of Canterbury doesn't take the service on Remembrance Sunday.
Why is that, Michael?
Well, traditionally, it's the Bishop of London, who's the number 3 in the hierarchy, I think Ailsa will tell me. But that's because it's the Dean of the Chapels Royal who actually takes the service, and it's almost always the case that the Bishop of London is also the Dean of the Chapels Royal, and officially the service is held by the Dean. So when Dame Sarah becomes Archbishop next year, I believe...
Yes, it's on January the 28th, I think, yes.
So next year it'll be the Bishop of London again, we would expect. But we'll see that will mark the very beginning of this service this morning, Camilla, because you'll see the cross-bearer coming out from the front door of the Foreign Office, and that's the moment that the service will officially begin to take place, and that's the Bishop's procession. And you'll see the Dean and Sub-Dean of the Chapels Royal and the choristers.
Well, the cross-bearer, Cornelius Vilkelis, was a former chorister, so we're going to hear boys and girls from the Chapel Royal Choir. They're aged 9 to 13. They attend City of London Boys' School, Girls' School and Juniors. And then I note that the cross-bearer this year is a former Chapel Royal chorister. So in his blood, in his history,
That's
he
right.
understands this from the very beginnings, presumably as a 9-year-old, singing at similar services of yesteryear.
What's so moving, Camilla, you're absolutely right, is that there's a historic resonance with a lot of people at this service, and it isn't just the veterans, it's mostly the veterans, but one of the gentlemen of the Chapel Royal, who you'll see with the choristers, has actually been present, Michael Maguire, he's actually been present at the service every year since 1987. So he's approaching his 40th anniversary of being one of the gentlemen of the Chapels Royal at this service. So there is a lot of historical resonance for individuals as well as for the nation. And the military chaplains, of course, are also in force on this occasion, as will be the General Officer Commanding London District, who, although he isn't the most senior officer in His Majesty's Armed Forces, is in charge of the London District, and therefore, when it comes to the Household Division, who are in force today, he is their officer in command. So he'll be present. You'll see him in his swan feathers, and he'll be saluting the cenotaph at the early stages of this service.
The most recent music and pictures was coming from the National Arboretum. In Whitehall, the music is provided by the Foot Guards bands, by the pipes and drums, and so on. And they play their way through a medley of music that represents all the parts of the United Kingdom. Just before we moved to the National Arboretum there, I caught the strains of Men of Harlech. They've been playing Rule Britannia, Heart of Oak, The Minstrel Boy, Men of Harlech, the Skyboat Song, and we're moving on now to Isle of Beauty, David of the White Rock, and Oft in the Stilly Night.
We're about 3 minutes away from the procession starting. As you said earlier, Michael, the King's Scouts are going to provide that Guard of Honour outside the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office building. So we are about to see members of the royal family. I wonder, Ailsa, whether the tradition will continue and we should expect George, Charlotte, even Louis to go into the armed forces at some point after school.
I would suspect, I would hope that the tradition would go forward. It means such a lot to members of the armed forces to have members of the royal family either serve with them or become their colonel-in-chief. My father was a Royal Naval officer. We've all, I think most families have got some significant person in their family in history who have been a member of the armed forces. And I think to have a member of the royal family front and centre means an awful lot. It really does. So I would.
And it means so much to the royal family, it seems to me.
Totally, yeah.
Any time I've had the honour of speaking to a member of the royal family, they have emphasised how much it means to them, collectively and as individuals, to have that extraordinary connection with the armed forces.
Elsa, answer another question for us. So we're going to have some wreaths laid by equerries, because the members of the royal family themselves, I'm including Queen Camilla in this, the Princess of Wales, and indeed the Duke of Kent, who is now the oldest member of the royal family.
90.
His wife Catherine passed away in September, the Duchess of Kent, who many viewers and listeners will be familiar with because she presented the trophies at Wimbledon, famously comforted a very tearful Jana Novotná that year. An equerry, Elsa, what does that job mean? What do they do?
So an equerry is the military sort of almost PA, if you like. It's on a rotational basis, so it would go every 2 years between the Royal Navy, the Royal Air Force and the British Army, and they would be the military representative to that member of the royal family and a very, very close advisor.
We're just witnessing scenes outside the Cenotaph as we are preparing to see members of the royal family, our Prime Minister, key members of government appear outside the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office for the start of these commemorations in Whitehall.
And the music, Camilla, has remained pretty much in situ for decades. It's deliberately chosen to represent the different nations, as Michael was saying earlier, the different airs and tunes. Some are of Scottish origin, some are connected to Wales, England, Ireland, Northern Ireland. And they are played every year and very much enjoyed by those who march with them and take part in this ceremony. The tradition, of course, is that the funeral march will be played when the Prime Minister starts. Beethoven's funeral march will be played when the Prime Minister begins laying the parliamentary wreaths. But the laying of the wreath by His Majesty the King and the royal family is usually done in absolute silence, straight after the 2 minutes silence.
It's also worth pointing out that it's going to be the Duke of Edinburgh, also known as Prince Edward, who's going to be taking the salute rather than the King. Elsa, why does that happen? Because the King needs to go inside and meet with dignitaries and veterans inside and play his role as monarch.
Absolutely, and as ambassador-in-chief almost. So yes, absolutely right.
We're also expecting, of course, to see the Duchess of Edinburgh, also known as Sophie Wessex, who will be there.
There's been a sharp switch in the pictures and the music for those of you listening on the radio. We're now hearing what's going on in Belfast. Let's give a little listen to this. Those are the scenes from Belfast. This emphasises that although there is a national act of remembrance in London, attended by His Majesty the King, Her Majesty the Queen, there are also acts of remembrance in the 4 nations that make up the United Kingdom. And those are the scenes there on your screen from Belfast. It is a great opportunity, Michael, to emphasise the unity of the United Kingdom.
It is indeed, Michael. And actually, you mentioned Ireland before, the Republic of Ireland. Since I think it was 2014, the Irish ambassador to the Court of St James has laid a wreath at the Cenotaph. That didn't happen, I don't think, before about 2014. And it's interesting to note that the wreath that the Irish ambassador lays is green. It isn't made of poppies, it's entirely green.
We're now seeing the first of the people who are going to lay wreaths emerging from the Foreign Office. I think they've all been in the Foreign Office, taking up their places. So the back row will take its place first, then the rows in front of that will take their places. And when all of those are in place on the Foreign Office side of Whitehall, then finally the royal family will come down from the Foreign Office and they will take their places to the north of the Cenotaph. His Majesty the King will be prominent, set forward, and other members of the royal family or their representatives, because a number of them this year will be equerries. They will take their places behind His Majesty.
So, Michael, I believe these are representatives from the Royal British Legion who are just getting ready there. As Michael Portillo has just said, we've got 2 Michaels in there. We should be mindful of.
Yes, after the main service ends and the dignitaries go back inside the Foreign Office, but just before the veterans themselves march past, then you will have the President of the Royal British Legion and other leading figures, the President of the Royal Naval Association, the Army Benevolent Fund, the Royal Air Force Association, the Royal British Legion Scotland, and also actually Transport for London.
Yes.
Will lay wreaths, and then the veterans, 10,000 veterans usually there are, led this year, I'm told, by the King's Bodyguard of the Yeomen of the Guard, because it's their 540th anniversary.
Yes, I saw that. Like the historic nature. I thought there were 2 dates that stuck out.
We're hearing the strains at the moment, sorry. We're hearing the strains of Edward Elgar's Nimrod.
Yes.
Yeah, 540th anniversary of that particular regiment, and then also it did catch my eye that the role that Jonathan Simpson plays in all this, Sergeant Vestry, has that post dates back to 1254.
Yes, in the Chapels Royal, yes, and that's very much the case. And I think he's a former police officer.
Yes, he served for 30 years in the Metropolitan Police.
And now Sergeant Vestry. I think you'll see here the resonance of British history going back, obviously, to World War I in particular, but there are elements of this which predate even that. And the fact that we may see later amongst the veterans those that were formed, the King's Bodyguard of the Yeomen of the Guard in 1485 after the Battle of Bosworth Field. It's quite extraordinary, really, the long arc of history and the sombre air of today very much resonates throughout that historical epoch.
The music is becoming more and more emotive, more and more tragic as we approach the hour of 11 o'clock.
From the first stage of this procession, and that is going to be with leading clergymen and women. The bishop's procession is going to start, we think, in about 10 seconds' time. We've talked about the significance of Sarah Mullally leading that, not least as she has just been appointed the new Archbishop of Canterbury, will take up her post in January.
The timing is so precise here, Camilla, that it's actually not timed to the minute, it's timed to the second. And a certain number of seconds past each minute, they'll be exiting from the Foreign Office main door.
When I am laid in earth, her cell, from Dido and Aeneas. Remember me is the refrain at the end of each line. Remember me.
Here's the procession starting, the bishop's procession. We've talked about the role of the cross-bearer Cornelius Vilkelis. We've talked about Jonathan Simpson in that historic role as Sergeant Vestry, dates back to 1254. He's a police officer with 30 years service of the Met Police under his belt. Reverend Canon Michael Parker, who's Chaplain General of the Army. Now, he is a Methodist minister. He served in Northern Ireland, Iraq and Afghanistan, as did Lieutenant Colonel Reverend Canon Paul Wright. He's the Sub-Dean of His Majesty's Chapels Royal, and he served in Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq and Afghanistan. So again, double significance for these clergymen who are taking part from a religious perspective, but also as people who served in conflict.
Immensely distinguished. There is the Lord Bishop of London. Emerging from the Foreign Office, the Prime Minister, followed by the Leader of the Opposition and other representatives of the political parties from the House of Commons, representatives also from the House of Lords. Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition marching together and now taking their places side by side.
Liz Saville-Roberts from Plaid Cymru is representing both the Scottish National Party and her own party today. They alternate. Since 2001, the two national parties of Scotland and Wales take it in turns for their parliamentary leaders to lay a wreath.
We can just see the gathering, yes, of former Prime Ministers.
Tony Blair, Gordon Brown,
David Cameron,
Lord Cameron.
Kemi Badenoch. Another convention introduced in 2024, Michael, Gavin Robinson from the DUP will be laying a wreath. Usually it's a privilege reserved to those who have got 6 or more seats in the House of Commons, but things were changed last year.
There's a protocol since 1984 that only leaders of political parties with 6 or more MPs lay a wreath. But they made an exception to that so that all constituent parts of the United Kingdom could be represented, even if a party had fewer than 6 MPs.
We can just see Boris Johnson then standing behind Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. Yvette Cooper and Shabana Mahmood are there in their capacity as Foreign Secretary and Home Secretary because they are representing the intelligence services.
And very important to commemorate the service of our intelligence services. We think of those amazing stories of bravery during the Second World War, but equally in all the other conflicts in which Britain has been involved with the Commonwealth.
We're about 90 seconds away from seeing members of the royal family appear as part of today's commemorations at the cenotaph. The sun is shining. As is ever the case, this has been meticulously planned with everybody in their rightful place at the rightful time. I mean, one looks at these events, Michael, and they make it look easy. The mind boggles as to the coordination and logistics involved in staging something so impressive and so poignant.
It is a thing of beauty. It is a very important ceremony, very important moment for the nation. And thank goodness it is still done with perfection.
Mr. Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle and the Lord Speaker, Lord McFall, are representing all of the parliamentarians in their respective houses. Lord McFall, I think, is 81 and he's stepping down from his role next year. And Mr. Speaker is going strong in the House of Commons. They're representing everyone in both of their houses. There are also several members of the Cabinet in the rows behind. Not every Cabinet minister is invited to attend, but many are. Even though they won't all lay wreaths, there's strong government representation always at this Remembrance Sunday service.
It's probably best to point out the royals that we will not see in the wreath laying because they will be on the balcony looking at the events from above. That's Queen Camilla, Kate, the Princess of Wales, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, the Duke of Kent and the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester will be watching from the balcony.
Majesty the Queen, Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales, view the event from the balcony.
And there is His Majesty the King, accompanied by his eldest son, the Prince of Wales, as they take their positions to prepare for the 2-minute silence, which is starting in just under a minute's time.
And His Majesty is wearing the uniform of a Field Marshal in the British Army. I think last year he was wearing the uniform of an Admiral of the Fleet.
We are now going to await Big Ben striking, and we will have the 2-minute silence commenced by the firing of a gun from the Horse Guards parade by the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery in just a moment. That last post sounded by the buglers of the Royal Marines and His Majesty the King there laying a wreath. Queen Camilla is in the balcony. Her wreath is going to be laid now by Ollie Plunkett, who is her equerry.
His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales.
Next to lay a wreath is His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Edward. And he will be taking the salute later on behalf of his brother. Now laying a wreath on behalf of Princess Anne is Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Skinner. Princess Anne is currently on a tour of Australia. And this is the equerry to the Duke of Kent, the oldest member of the royal family. He's called Captain Peter Myburgh.
The Duke of Kent, of course, was 21 years in the Royal Scots Greys.
As Michael said earlier, a change of scene is announced by the playing of Funeral March No. 1 in B flat minor by Beethoven. And this is the moment when the representatives of the political parties lay their wreaths at the cenotaph, beginning with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. He'll be followed by the Leader of the Opposition, Amy Badenoch.
This time last year, when Kemi Badenoch laid the wreath at the cenotaph on behalf of the loyal opposition, it was one of her first duties. She'd just been appointed leader of the Conservative Party, so it was one of her first duties after that date.
Next to lay a wreath is the Right Honourable Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Liberal Democrats. As we discussed earlier, Plaid Cymru and the SNP, the Scottish National Party, take it in turns to lay a wreath. This year it is the role of Liz Saville-Roberts, who's the leader of Plaid Cymru in Westminster, to lay the wreath on behalf of both parties.
And she'll be followed by the Democratic Unionist Party. As we discussed before, the convention was nudged in order that the DUP would be able to lay a wreath to make sure that all parts of the United Kingdom were represented in London at this national act of remembrance. The Right Honourable Gavin Robinson, MP, steps forward.
Just looking at the balcony there with Queen Camilla and the Princess of Wales, clearly decision made not for Prince George to attend. He may be in the background, we don't know that. He was at the Festival of Remembrance last night.
Lindsay Hoyle, or one should say today, should give people all their titles, the Right Honourable Sir Lindsay Hoyle, MP, Speaker of the House of Commons.
And Sir Lindsay often wears, including in the House of Commons, military ties. He has a large collection of ties of regiments of the British Armed Forces.
The House of Lords, represented net in the person of the Right Honourable Lord Montfort. Many years of service in the House of Commons before moving to the House of Lords and becoming the Lord Speaker.
And stepping down next year at the age of 81.
Next to lay a wreath is the Right Honourable Yvette Cooper, MP, Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs. She has been here, of course, last year in her capacity as Home Secretary. She's joined by her successor there, Shabana Mahmood. They are both laying wreaths together on behalf of the intelligence agencies.
The Foreign Secretary for MI6 and GCHQ, and the Home Secretary for MI5.
Now, we talked earlier, both Michaels and Ailsa, about the importance of the Commonwealth in today's events, not just to the royal family, of course, but indeed to the nation, because of the service of so many people from so many Commonwealth countries in support of our own monarch and country. The Crown dependencies and the United Kingdom overseas territories will each lay wreaths in groups, Michael. Explain how that's going to play out.
Well, we're going to see that right now. The Crown representatives from the Bailiwick of Guernsey, the Bailiwick of Jersey and the Isle of Man are joined by the overseas territories representatives in London from Anguilla, Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, the Falkland Islands, Gibraltar, Montserrat, Pitcairn Islands, St Helena, Ascension Island, Tristan da Cunha and the Turks and Caicos Islands. The only overseas territory not represented there is the British Antarctic Territory, and that's because it's uninhabited.
How are the groups formed, Michael, and what order do they lay their wreaths in? Is there any particular significance to that?
Yes, we're now going to see the Commonwealth. There are 49 Commonwealth High Commissioners or their representatives present, and they'll be laying wreaths in 5 blocks in the order in which they achieved independence from the United Kingdom. So the first batch, Canada, achieving independence in 1867, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Ghana and Malaysia.
And just to say that that group of representatives of High Commissioners, and in one case, I think, a Deputy High Commissioner, in another case, a military attaché, will represent the most extraordinary sacrifice made on behalf of the British Empire, what we refer to as the British Commonwealth today.
Yes, and this second batch now from Nigeria, Cyprus, Sierra Leone, Tanzania, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Uganda and Kenya.
I'm looking at this list, Ailsa, and spotting all of the countries that the late Queen will have visited, and indeed equally well travelled, really. The current King as the longest serving heir apparent in history.
Absolutely.
He circumnavigated the globe too.
Absolutely, probably twice.
Yes.
In this third batch, Malta will be represented, and of course they famously won the George Cross for their bravery in World War II.
Having suffered a long and terrible siege with massive casualties.
Just seeing there, standing next to Gordon Brown, is your successor, Sir Michael, Lord Hermer.
Yes, he's one of the cabinet ministers in attendance, representing the the legal community. Batch of High Commissioners or representatives will be Mauritius, Eswatini, which used to be called Swaziland, Tonga, Fiji, Bangladesh, the Bahamas, Grenada, Papua New Guinea, the Seychelles, Dominica, St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Belize, Antigua and Barbuda, the Maldives, St. Christopher and Nevis, Brunei Dar es Salaam, Namibia, Cameroon, Mozambique, Rwanda, Gabon and Togo. Some of those countries were never part of the British Empire or Commonwealth, but they've joined the Commonwealth of Nations subsequently, and they also have laid a wreath at the cenotaph today.
There's an added significance, isn't there, with the presence of the ambassadors of Nepal and Ireland. We spoke earlier, Michael Portillo, about the importance of the Irish serving in conflicts alongside the British. Let's speak, Michael Ellis, about the ambassador of Nepal. He's been invited, or she's been invited, to lay a wreath since 2019.
Yes.
And that's marking the sacrifice, I presume, of the Gurkhas.
Indeed it is, and in fact we still have 3,000 Gurkhas serving in the British Army. This is the Nepalese chargé d'affaires and the Irish ambassador now, the Irish ambassador with his green wreath. The Nepalese, the Gurkhas have been serving in the armed forces of this country since the year 1816.
Now wreaths will be laid by the representatives of the armed forces, as I say, the Chief of the Defence Staff, the Chief of the Naval Staff, the Chief of the General Staff and the Chief of the Royal Air Force. And viewers may note that there doesn't seem to be an admiral. That is because the Royal Navy is commanded at the moment by General Sir Gwyn Jenkins, who's from the Royal Marines. The first time that a Royal Marine General has been the Chief of the Naval Staff, First Sea Lord, laying his wreath there today. The others were Sir Richard Knighton, General Sir Roland Walker and Air Chief Marshal Harvey Smith.
And the Merchant Navy and Fishing Fleets, the Air Transport Auxiliary Association and the Chair of the National Police Chiefs Council, Chief Constable Sir Andy Marsh, have just laid their wreaths.
We did say this earlier, but this year it's going to be down to HRH, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, to take the salute at Horse Guards Parade for the march past of the ex-service and civilian associations following the ceremony, which is just about to start. And accompanying him will be his equerry, Captain William Jack. He's also going to be accompanied by the Secretary of State for Defence, John Healey.
May be so inspired by the spirit of their love and fortitude that, forgetting all selfish and unworthy motives, we may live only to thy glory and to the service of mankind. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
O God, our help in ages past. Every member of the congregation grouped around the cenotaph on its four sides has taken out the hymn sheet to join in this very solemn hymn in memory of those who have fallen.
It's also worth noting, we haven't mentioned that also present in the so-called hollow square around the cenotaph as they're singing this hymn are the faith and belief group representatives. There are representatives from all of the faiths really, that are present in the United Kingdom and further afield. Sir Mufti Hamid Patel, CBE, representing the Muslim community. The Chief Rabbi is there, Sir Ephraim Mervis. Representatives of the Sikh, Hindu, Baha'i, Catholic, the Salvation Army Commissioner, humanists are present. The entire leadership of the religious faith and belief groups in the United Kingdom are present at the cenotaph.
Proudly singing in his uniform. I've got some details of the uniform actually for those who are interested in what the future king is wearing, because he does have a choice of uniform, but in this case he's wearing the Royal Air Force uniform in the rank of Wing Commander with greatcoat, poppy and sword. For those who are seeing this footage of His Majesty the King, he laid his wreath first, as is tradition. He's wearing a open-style poppy metals made from bonded fabric, and the sovereign's wreath is mounted on an arrangement of black leaves, 27 inches in diameter.
And not to ask for any reward, save that of knowing that we do thy will. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Unto God's gracious mercy and protection we commit you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you his peace this day and always. Amen.
The national anthem.
Majesty's birthday next week. He'll be 77 years of age as he leaves the cenotaph with other members of the royal family and their equerries. The clergy will follow, followed by the politicians. And present there, as well as the leading politicians that we've already mentioned, the Defence Secretary, Justice Secretary, Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Housing, Communities and Local Government Secretary, Science, Science, Innovation and Technology, the Leader of the House of Commons, Leader of the House of Lords, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, and, as Camilla has mentioned, the Attorney General. They'll follow the clergy leaving now.
So the one member of the royal family that will remain is the Duke of Edinburgh. He inherited Prince Edward the title from his late father. I covered the story, actually, of the Wessexes saying how Prince Philip had approached them in the months before his death and said that he wanted that dukedom to go to his youngest son. For over 20 years, the Duke of Edinburgh served as Royal Honorary Colonel of the Royal Wessex Yeomanry, eponymously. The Duke of Edinburgh is also the Colonel of the Scots Guards, having been made Colonel in April 2024, Colonel of the London Guards and Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Dragoon Guards and the Queen's Royal Hussars.
The Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, leading all the other representatives of the political parties, enter into the Foreign Office now, followed by the former Prime Ministers, quite a large group of men and women, given recent political history. They are entering the Foreign Office now. And that might appear to be the end of the ceremony, but it's very important to recall that there will be this massive march past by 10,000 veterans, which in many ways must be regarded as one of the most important of the events of today.
And I think we see now the High Commissioners departing from the Hollow Square. The Duke of Edinburgh, as Camilla was just saying, will now go to Horse Guards Parade on the other side of Whitehall to be ready to take the salute when the 10,000 march past the cenotaph. They go around and then march past the Duke of Edinburgh at Horse Guards Parade. And I think the Defence Secretary will be with him at that time. Michael, as you no doubt recall from your stint.
John Healey will be there today, yes.
Before that march past commences at 11:30, we're going to have the wreath laying by the Royal British Legion, who of course help immensely to coordinate these events.
These are the service chiefs that Michael was mentioning earlier. Chief of the Defence Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton.
I'll say it was one of the privileges of my life to work alongside the, I'm going to say 5 Defence Chiefs, because there's also the Vice Chief of the Defence Staff, a very important position as well. Of course, I'm talking about predecessors to the 4 that we see here today, but nonetheless, their offices are extraordinarily important, and I was deeply inspired by the leadership and advice that they offered.
The King's Wreath there, the only one standing up against the cenotaph. It's interesting to note that the colours there, you can see purple and red, they're the King's racing colours. And it's been a long tradition for those colours to be used on the King's or the Sovereign's wreath.
So we have reached the moment for the Royal British Legion to lay their wreaths. Representatives of the Royal British Legion lay their wreaths at the cenotaph.
So the National President of the Royal British Legion is Vice Admiral Paul Bennett, and I think we've just seen the Royal Naval Association lay their wreath. And the Royal British Legion, of course, although the number of veterans of World War II is necessarily always depleted every year, there are still some 8,000 apparently remaining from World War II.
Extraordinary.
And there are many younger veterans as well from more recent conflicts. The Army Benevolent Fund is laying a wreath, followed by the Royal Air Force Association. All of these organisations, charitable organisations, are headed by illustrious former military commanders, and they will, after they've laid their wreath, the 10,000 veterans will begin the march past. The Royal Commonwealth Ex-Services League is another to lay a wreath.
As ever, the music makes it, doesn't it? We're hearing too music being played by the massed bands of the Household Division, the combined bands of the Royal Marines and RAF, all under the direction of Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Halliday, who is the main officer in the Household Division bands, who oversees this quite impressive musical display to accompany the march past.
I think the General Officer commanding London District will be very pleased with how the ceremony has gone so far today. James Bowder, he himself has seen service in Northern Ireland and Afghanistan, and he will have been in the northeast part of the square watching over proceedings with his Chief of Staff, Colonel Guy Stone, and his aide-de-camp, Captain Peter Openshaw. They've gone inside now, getting ready for the second part of this ceremony, which is the march past of the veterans.
What I find so impressive about it, and I was in Westminster quite a lot last week, so I was outside Buckingham Palace and I was hearing a degree of rehearsal take place. Mm-hmm. But let's be honest, I mean, when you consider, Ailsa, just how perfectly executed this event always is, and you could say, well, historically we do it every year, and therefore, well, not always with the same personnel.
Absolutely.
There isn't that much opportunity to practice 10,000 people marching past the cenotaph. How is this executed behind the scenes, Ailsa? How much planning goes into it? What's the coordination between the royal household and the military and the government?
Hand in glove. It really is. And of course, the equerries will come and practice the wreath laying time and time again to make it absolutely pitch perfect. But I don't know about you, but the sense of pride in our armed forces, our military, while watching this, it's just extraordinary. And even though this is an annual event, it still takes my breath away. It really does. It's absolutely exquisite, and it's us doing what we do best.
Of course, we have this template, this absolutely firm template from year to year, same music at the same moment and so on. And I think members of the armed forces must, as it were, look forward to the day when they step into these shoes, and they must think about all the people who've paraded over the years, who've played the music over the years. In my memory, it's always gone smoothly, with one glaring exception. There was an occasion, perhaps Michael will remember in which year it was, where in the middle of it all, a helicopter appeared over the parade, and we all held our breath as to whether this was some appalling terrorist outrage about to occur. And then eventually the helicopter went away, and there had been some extraordinary lapse in security to allow a helicopter to appear overhead, making a terrible noise, but I think also alarming everyone. We all had to have nerves of steel as to what was going to happen next. Long time ago, and a single lapse. Do you remember it, Michael?
I don't actually remember that, but I strongly suspect it was in breach of an air navigation order, and there would have been some consequences. The last person to individually lay a wreath there, Michael, was the Transport for London representative, and it's interesting the history of that. It was actually King George V, way back in 1920, who said that the predecessor of Transport for London, the London Omnibus Company, should be allowed to lay a wreath because of the service that London bus drivers had given to the World War I efforts.
That puts me in mind of a memory which was jogged by reading up in advance of today. When I was a child, the buses used to stop at 11 o'clock. The bus drivers certainly would dismount. Sometimes the passengers would dismount so that they could stand in silence at 11 o'clock. And going back to the earliest armistice days, all buses stopped. That was an order that was given. And the electricity was switched off to the trams, so that the trams also ground to a halt. The driver had no discretion. The trams had to stop, so that everyone could observe the silence.
It's rather lovely.
Rather lovely.
It is lovely, and it's the reverence with which this event and the cenotaph is treated. After it was first unveiled, there were so many mothers in particular and wives who came to lay flowers there. Over 1 million people came past.
Yes.
And Whitehall had to be sealed off for days because they couldn't get any traffic down there because of the number of veterans.
That picture that we're seeing now is a tribute to the man I call Lutyens. You pronounce it Lutyens, I call him Lutyens, the architect of the cenotaph. It seems to have been absolutely perfectly designed to take all of the wreaths that are laid today. Or perhaps it is, on the other hand, that we've tailored the number of wreaths to the design of the cenotaph. But anyway, it is a glorious sight, bedecked now with poppies.
It's beautiful in its simplicity. And it was after World War II when the dates of World War II were carved into the cenotaph, and King George VI unveiled the new dates.
It was interesting this year that there wasn't really very much debate around poppy wearing. Do you remember we had that period where it was seen as in some way controversial? I think it was maybe under the Jeremy Corbyn Peace, Love and Harmony years. And actually, the Telegraph offices are right next door to Victoria Station. And every time I walked through the station, those selling poppies were being mobbed. There were many, many people buying them. And then I was also gratified to see, I mean, I've seen a number of school children actually out and about as I've been on the school run. They've all proudly got their poppies on. I was at a football match yesterday with my youngest child. They stopped. The referee blew the whistle at the beginning. They all stood diligently for a minute's silence. I mean, we did speak earlier to Joe White about some of those quite worrying surveys, Ailsa, revealing that half the population don't know what the Battle of Britain stands for, etc., etc. Actually, I found with my own children, they do a lot of education around Poppy Day in schools.
Mine too. My son is 21. I saw him last week. He's in his final year of university reading history and politics, and he wore a poppy. And I said, is this unusual, Henry? And he said, no, all my friends do.
Yes.
I'm so pleased.
Well, that's very gratifying.
And that moment of rebellion, there's not much in the world that's new. During the 1930s, when pacifism was obviously very popular, people were longing for peace. Disparate groups used to sell white poppies as a sort of protest, as you know, their commitment to peace. And one understands a commitment to peace. We're all committed to it if it is at all possible. And that was, of course, around the time of the famous Oxford Union debate, in which the Oxford Union declared that it was not ready to die for king and country.
As we are talking about poppies, should we have a little word? You said it earlier, Michael Portillo, about how you had noticed on your way into the studio today hundreds and thousands of veterans gathering at different stations.
That would be an exaggeration. Hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yes.
Which turned into thousands pretty rapidly. Well, this is the statistic, and it's quite something. So there's an organisation called Poppy Cars, and this is where black cabbies get together and they offer a service for free to veterans who turn up at different points across London in order to be convened to the cenotaph and indeed to Horse Guards. And they will have carried out 1,000 journeys today, this morning, in 2 hours. Effectively, if you're a veteran and you need a ride along with your family, you can be taken across the capital by people who have done their knowledge. I mean, it's a lovely thing, isn't it?
Very generous London cabbies.
I have to say, travelling into London this morning, I was the only civilian amongst the veterans on the train today, and they looked amazing with all their medals, and they looked so pristine, and I felt immensely proud.
We're looking there at the flag of Ukraine, and this, I think, should remind us, quite extraordinary to think that there is a war in Europe today, that Europeans are being killed in battle today, and in terrible numbers. I mean, in numbers that remind one of the Great War, of the First World War, the terrible amount of killing. And who could have imagined, I mean, even a few years ago when we were commemorating Remembrance Sunday, who could have imagined that another war in Europe with catastrophic casualties would occur?
Also a ground war, Michael, actually reminiscent of some of the scenes of the First and Second World Wars that have latterly been commemorated in films, but those scenes actually playing out in the fields and on the streets of Ukraine. It's quite horrifying, really.
One of the things you used to see, Michael and Camilla, in the days when men wore hats more often, is that every time they went past the cenotaph, they would doff their hats. They were on their way to work or wherever they were going. And that, of course, carried on for generations. Now, very few men wear hats, of course, but if you're seeing military personnel in Whitehall, even if they're going about their business at the Ministry of Defence, they'll often salute as they walk past the cenotaph.
It is an immensely powerful symbol, a unifying symbol, a thing of beauty in itself, a place where the nation comes together once a year.
So just to bring you up to speed, you may have been at your own local commemoration and you've just returned home, or you're listening to this in the car. We are watching the scenes unfold in the cenotaph as 10,000 service personnel and veterans prepare to march through our capital. We have seen the wreaths being laid by members of the royal family and the Prime Minister, other key political figures. They have now gone inside the Foreign and Commonwealth building, we presume for a reception. We're going to see these scenes unfold, and we're also going to cross to GBNews reporters across the UK. We have Dougie Beattie in Northern Ireland, he's in Belfast. We've got Will Godley in Whitehall. We've got Jack Carson on Horse Guards, where he's preparing to interview people who are intimately and personally involved in the commemorations today. And later on in the show, Michael and I are going to be speaking to a number of really interesting guests. We're going to be speaking to Matthew Hellier, who has served 400 operations. He was in the SAS. He's set up a charity to help veterans. We're also going to be speaking to a quite impressive man and his dog, would you believe, a man called Mitch Hutchcraft, who has carried out all sorts of extraordinary feats, including climbing Everest with a rescue dog. He is about to embark on something that sounds quite horrifying. It is a challenge where he is going to be running 700 kilometres over the course of 11 days. That's 60 back-to-back marathons. He's still to come. He's also set up a charity to help veterans. So we will continue with this theme and also speak to our reporters to find out what they have witnessed at different parts of the UK as Remembrance Sunday has been commemorated by the nation this morning.
Wonderful sound of the pipes and drums, sound swirling across the capital this morning.
I think we're just in a moment going to cross to Jack Carson, who has spent the morning in Horse Guards. He has been speaking to service personnel, past and present. He's been speaking to veterans, and he's going to be bringing us an interview with somebody he has met there. Also going to be crossing live to Dougie Beattie in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and to Will Godley, who has been in Whitehall to see these extraordinary events unfold before his very eyes. And here is the march past.
tourist groups coming past the cenotaph include the Spirit of Normandy Trust, the Burma Star Memorial Fund, the Chindit Society, the Commando Association.
Some hats coming off there, Michael, I alluded to earlier.
So joining us now from Horse Guards Parade is our GB News national reporter, Jack Carson. Jack, I believe you have the opportunity to speak to the Director of Remembrance at the Royal British Legion, is that right?
That's right, but let's first just show you the arrival of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, who will be taking the salute today, of course, as those 10,000 people who have taken part in the Royal British Legion's march past the cenotaph. When they come back round to Horse Guards, they will take the salute from His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh. And to talk us all through the events today, the Director of Remembrance at the Royal British Legion, Philippa Rawlinson, joins us now. Thank you for joining us. I think just reflecting on today and that 2-minute silence, it's been quite a poignant day here in London, particularly because, of course, this year marks 80 years since the end of the Second World War.
Absolutely, it's been a very poignant day. We've been here since the Horse Guards Parade was empty. We've seen it fill up. We've seen veterans come together. That comradeship that people have within the armed forces being renewed as people fall into their regiments. And this year being joined by about 20 World War II veterans. I know we were expecting 20. I'm not sure how many we had in the end. But it's wonderful to have both VE and VJ veterans at the front of the march, and then other veterans leading their associations. So real richness as we saw 101-year-olds and 8-year-olds marching today, just showing how remembrance really unites us.
And it really is that coming together again from old comrades and people that have fought together, but also, I guess, finding people with a similar medal. And I think it shows, and what we've seen here today, is that military family. Once you're part of the military, that family, it never really leaves you, does it?
No, it doesn't. I think we see that time and time again as we bring veterans together, and along with the serving. Many of the Second World War veterans that we've been working with this week at the Royal British Legion, I think in the ones on the stage of the Festival of Remembrance last night, had those that served in the same regiments with those connections. John Escadale, who spoke on stage and festival, he had a currently serving Royal Marine Reservist standing beside him. That network, that bond and camaraderie certainly never leaves people.
And for you, what do you think of on days like today? Because you're so actively involved in remembrance all year round with your role as the British Legion. So when it comes to the big occasions like today, what is it for you that you reflect upon? What is it for you that you remember?
Well, I remember how amazing my team from the Royal British Legion are bringing this together. And the associations that we work with, we don't do this alone. We do this with partners and with the associations. But it's really humbling to be able to create these moments for those that we serve, our veteran community. And I remember the buzz, the people throwing their arms around each other as they come back together again, and then the solemnity as they march off, and that moment as we all mark that silence and remember those that can no longer march by them side again. It's really poignant, really moving.
There's been a lot of anniversaries this year, of course, celebrations of VE Day and VJ Day 80, and of course today. How do you think, now we're coming to the end of major remembrance events for this year, how do you look back on this year as we've been saying, 80 years on from the end of the Second World War, such a poignant year this year has been. How do you reflect on the year as a whole with all the remembrance events that we've had throughout the year?
With immense pride from what we've been able to do. We see time and time again what these moments matter and what they mean to the community. Just thinking of veterans who spoke after the event at the National Memorial Arboretum for VJ Day, who's saying, we feel we're not the forgotten army anymore because we had the King with us, and that matters. To be able to do something that moves people is important. But thinking about those who served 80 years ago, but also those that are continuing to serve or have served more recently, like those that have marched today have been. In December, the Royal British Legion will be marking 30 years since the signing of the peace accords in Bosnia, and we'll be marking that with another event at the National Memorial Arboretum. Much younger cohort of veterans who we will be bringing together. So while we might be sadly have fewer and fewer World War II, we are still plenty of people that we want to enable to have those very special moments and reconnect through remembrance, because it unites us all.
Philippa Rawlinson, Director of Remembrance at the Royal British Legion, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Of course, those wonderful reflections on what a fantastic morning it's been. And of course, it's going to continue, as we've been saying, as the Duke of Edinburgh will be here on Horse Guards Parade for those veterans, those 10,000 veterans and civilian personnel who will march by and come back to Horse Guards at the end, of course, of this event.
Thank you very much, Jack, and thank you for interviewing Philippa Rawlinson. I was very struck there. There are some veterans there who won't have been in service for many, many years, but they have not forgotten how to march.
No, they
Still
haven't.
in time, swinging the arms, absolutely spot on, very impressive.
Many of them removing their hats as they turn towards the cenotaph. It really is a joy to behold this spectacle. And we are very grateful for your time, former Attorney General Sir Michael Ellis and Ailsa Anderson, former Communications Secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II and the Archbishop of Canterbury. Final reflections from you both. Ailsa, first of all.
Again, another really, really moving celebration of all that is good, and it's wonderful seeing the royal family front and centre as a real focus for people today. I know it will mean a great deal to them, like it does for the nation.
Well, I think this is part of who we are as a nation, as Ailsa is saying, and that's why one of the many reasons why it's so important to the royal family and to the people of this country. And what strikes me is the old saying, I think Winston Churchill has often quoted, those who ignore history will be condemned to repeat it. And so we look at our veterans and we look at the arc of history, the long arc of history that this cenotaph represents, and we say, not only thank you to those who gave their lives for King and country, or Queen and country, but have a mark on the future to ensure that we protect our society and our life going forward.
This is not an hour in which to be controversial, and so I shall avoid being so. But the concepts we talk about, freedom, these are not theoretical things. They are practical. They really mean something. There are many people in the world who do not have freedom. And this is not just, I think, about looking back. It should also be an expression of our determination to maintain our freedom of speech, our freedom of association, our freedom of ideas. These are so important, and they are actual. This is what people died for.
That's right.
This is the gift they gave us, and it's our duty to continue to protect it.
Yes, the British values that people sacrifice so much for. And, of course, we're seeing veterans here now who will have horrific memories of their time serving at the time Queen and country, now King and country, and I think it's taken on added significance because of recent events. No, we don't want to make it controversial, but at the same time it is so important as a nation that we gather together in a sense of unity, actually, in a sense of unified pride for what these people did for us.
And we must never forget.
Never forget.
We'll bring you more coverage later of today's events.
We're going to be speaking to some veterans here in the studio as we reflect on Remembrance Sunday. We'll also be speaking to our reporters across the UK as they have witnessed the events of this morning. We will continue to remember this morning until 1 p.m, so do stay with us. This is GB News, Britain's news channel on Remembrance Sunday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. We have rain slowly pushing eastwards through the day today. There'll be some bright skies either side, some fog as well, but generally the next few days the low pressure is going to become dominant. We'll see outbreaks of rain, stronger winds pushing in from the Atlantic as we move through the week ahead. But here's the rain by lunchtime across western parts of England and Wales, stretching up into northeast England, eastern Scotland. The rain pushing only slowly north and eastward, so not really going anywhere very quickly. Brighter skies either side of this with some sunny spells, quite blustery around some western coasts. The wind's coming in from the south, so another mild day for everyone, 12 to 15 Celsius. And then into the evening time, the rain continues to push north and eastwards. There's still the risk of some heavy rain across southern parts of England and Wales, particularly South Wales, where there could be some localised flooding. But brighter skies, drier skies across Northern Ireland into western Scotland with some clear spells here and a few showers, but the rain stretching up into Orkney and Shetland into the evening time. Temperatures just starting to dip into single figures where there is some chillier air across northern parts of Scotland. Further outbreaks of rain pushing north and eastwards as we go through this evening and overnight. Bands coming in from the Atlantic as well. So a fairly unsettled night to come. Some of the rain could be heavy at times, but in between there will be some drier periods, and the winds coming in from the south and still fairly brisk, so temperatures remaining in double figures across much of England and Wales, but dipping into single figures across northwest Scotland. An unsettled start to Monday, bands of showers pushing north and eastwards. Some of this will be heavy at times, some gusty winds, but in between there will be some sunny spells. So it's worth having the raincoat with you as you go through the day today, turning particularly showery across England and Wales into the afternoon. A little cooler, temperatures around 14 Celsius.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. There's £30,000 in tax-free cash to make 2026 the best year yet. A further £10,000 cash to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £1,000 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. And we'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Good afternoon and welcome to this special Remembrance Sunday programme here on GB News.
The nation fell silent today to honour those brave servicemen and women who gave their lives for their country.
The King led the nation in that silence at the cenotaph, where he also laid a wreath alongside the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
Thousands gathered in central London, and services have taken place across the country to remember.
No, there's only
Here at Horse Guards Parade, those 10,000 people that have marched from here are now arriving back, taking the salute from the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Edward.
Well, here in Westminster, thousands of people lining the streets and applauding the thousands marching past the cenotaph.
Yes, about 2,000 people gathered here in Belfast for a very dignified and reflective ceremony. They included First Minister Michelle O'Neill, Deputy First Minister Emma Little-Pengelly, and from the Republic's government, Helen McAtee. People are now in quiet reflection, looking at the wreaths that have been laid.
Still to come in this hour, we'll be joined by several special guests as we reflect on the personal sacrifices behind Remembrance Sunday, honouring the veterans and their families caught up in conflict.
Thank you for joining us on GB News as we remember. I'm Michael Portillo.
And I'm Camilla Tominey, and this is Remembrance Sunday on GB News. All of that and much more to come, including incredible stories from veterans. But first, your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Camilla. 2 minutes past 12 here in the GB newsroom. The King led the nation in a 2-minute silence earlier to remember those who died in conflict. He was joined by other members of the royal family and senior politicians who are laying wreaths to honour the fallen. The Queen and the Princess of Wales took their places on the Foreign Office balconies overlooking the cenotaph. Around 20 veterans who served in the Second World War were there. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader, joined the King in laying wreaths at the monument. A number of former Prime Ministers also in attendance. Some 10,000 Armed Forces veterans have been taking part in the Royal British Legion's march through Whitehall. Now, the BBC is expected to apologise for the way in which a speech by President Trump was edited in an episode of Panorama. The concerns regard clips spliced together from sections of the US President's speech on January the 6th, 2021. That's the day of the Capitol Hill riots. It's understood the BBC chairman, Samir Shah, will provide a full response to the Culture, Media and Sport Committee on Monday. It is almost a week since The Telegraph reported that Michael Prescott, a former external advisor to the BBC's Editorial Standards Committee, raised concerns about misleading viewers over the summer. The Shadow Defence Secretary says David Lammy has questions to answer over whether he broke the ministerial code when being challenged about prisoner releases in the Commons. On Wednesday, James Cartledge pressed the Justice Secretary to confirm whether any other asylum-seeking offenders had been wrongly freed since the case of Harish Kubatu. Mr Lammy declined to comment, despite being aware of another case. 4 incorrectly released prisoners, 2 of whom were freed last year, remain at large, and James Cartledge says Mr Lammy's performance was extraordinary.
There's a big question about the ministerial code. As a minister, David Lammy is duty-bound to be transparent with Parliament. And had I known that when I was asking those questions, he apparently had a statement about that issue at hand and he chose not to give any answers at all, I find that extraordinary. So there are big questions for him to answer. We then requested to him to come back to Parliament later in the day. I don't know if you saw this, I did a point of order, colleagues did points of order. He needed to come back and clarify and he refused to do so. He did a runner and that's not acceptable.
The government set to launch an independent review into the rising levels of inactivity in young people. It's estimated the number of 16 to 24-year-old so-called NEETs, those not in education, employment or training, has reached 940,000, with around a quarter of those people blaming disability or long-term sickness. The Work and Pensions Secretary, Pat McFadden's, described it as a crisis of opportunity, and the inquiry will be led by former Labour Health Secretary Alan Milburn. And the Philippines is bracing for a super typhoon. It comes less than a week after more than 220 people were killed in a separate storm. And nearly 1 million people have been evacuated as the storm intensifies. It's approaching the east of the country right now. It's caused poor power outages and is due to make landfall later with heavy rain and flooding forecast. Typhoon Kalmegi hit the Philippines and Vietnam on Tuesday, flattening homes and uprooting trees, taking out power for millions of people. More than 100 are still missing, and rescue operations from that storm have been suspended. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with a short update at 12:30.
Thank you very much indeed, Aaron Armstrong. With us now to reflect on today's events is a new panel, Chief Political Correspondent at The Times, Aubrey Allegretti, and councillor and veteran Stuart Fawcett. Welcome to you both. Thank you for giving up part of your Sunday to be on GB News. Stuart, would you mind telling us a little bit about your service?
Certainly. I had the great privilege of becoming a naval officer at 18 years of age. Joined up with a lot of graduates who were a little bit older, but that meant joining the Naval Officer College at Dartmouth, Britannia Royal Naval College at 18 years old, going through around about a year's worth of basic officer training. I was then very privileged to be able to be sent on exchange to the US Naval Academy, and then further privileged to be able to go several places around the world, including Europe and the Middle East, for operational deployments out there. Sadly, I got quite badly injured and had to leave due to medical reasons. And at quite
May I ask, were you injured in an act of war or
it was just an accident, a training accident that happened, and things didn't get managed too well. And that is quite a common situation for servicemen. I think we often do think we see the legacy of Afghanistan and Iraq, and a lot of people are injured just in training or through other reasons.
How many years did you serve?
5 years. Yeah.
And what would you say to a young person who might be watching today about what service meant to you? I mean, do you recommend it?
Absolutely. The opportunities that the military gave me were incredible. I have done things and become a person that, without the training, ethos and values that they instilled in me, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I think one of those is probably the most important, which is resilience. I had a pretty difficult time after leaving the services. I wasn't the person that you see sat in front of you today, but that resilience that was instilled in me by the military is why I'm sat here today talking to you.
How much support did you get, Stuart, after you hit a low?
Not enough. There were some real gaps when I left that were quite sad to see, to be honest, especially for someone so young. The reasons, and I'll come on to them, that happened to me is the reason I'm sat here today. And, I've got involved in politics because I didn't want other people to have the same experience, given the amazing opportunities in life that the military can give to you. And we're now seeing some really great measures to help veterans and service personnel, both in service and afterwards. Which mean that they're not going to be left without support. There's a lot more recognition in society afterwards, because often veterans and service personnel face issues after their service, essentially, and that can be quite a long time. One of those things, sadly, is that veterans now represent the largest occupational group in the prison system, and that's quite a sad situation.
That is extraordinary, and it's very sad. I mean, just going back to the thought about speaking to the young people in our audience today. I mean, one of the things you signed up for was your willingness to give your life. Indeed. That's absolutely fundamental to the pledge you make when you enter the armed forces. How can you explain to a young person that you were willing to make that pledge?
I think it's because I had a recognition that everything that surrounds us today, what you are seeing there today, requires security. It doesn't happen. The freedoms that we enjoy are not free. My grandfather had served in the Royal Navy during the Second World War. The rest of my family didn't have service experience. But for me, that was still very recognisable that people have to make sacrifice for us to have the freedoms that we do. And those sacrifices are ongoing. I'd grown up with the situation, the war on terror in Afghanistan and Iraq, that had formed my worldview as a young person. And I realised I wanted to participate in that in order to contribute to society.
Aubrey, and the media obviously has a role to play in making sure that we do remember, that we don't forget. Yet the context to this Remembrance Day has been quite difficult, not only because foreign wars are being fought and there's a debate going on as to our support, the US's support, and all the rest of it, but domestically we've been having debates about mass migration and whether that should change the complexion of Britain. We referenced earlier an interview in The Week with a World War II veteran, Alec Penston, at 100 years old, saying, was the sacrifice worth it? I mean, that is not the prelude to this Remembrance Sunday that the Prime Ministers and others in government want.
No, certainly not. And I mean, Remembrance Day often sort of throws topical issues into sharper focus. And I think this year there will be questions around community coherence, about how much do people in this country all believe in the same things and feel bonded and unified by the same sort of symbols and institutions. It's so remarkable that obviously this is the opportunity of the year where we get to see not just the King, but also all sort of leaders of the political parties lining up together, unified to pay their respects together. And it's something that very, very rarely happens in politics. So it's a good reminder that no matter what the political debates are happening behind the scenes, that there is a focus on remembrance and ensuring that this never happens again. But it will throw up some difficult questions for the politicians themselves about their own policies.
Just on that never again, we've had a debate this week again because of the match at Aston Villa, the Tel Aviv Maccabi fans not being able to come, suggestions that anti-Semitism, in fact, statistics showing that anti-Semitism is sharply on the rise in the UK. We've got fears about sectarian politics, actually in quite a lot of Labour areas, Stuart, the independent candidates coming in and replacing Labour candidates. This idea that there is division on the streets, and we witnessed it with pro-Palestinian marches and what have you. I mean, contextualise for us how you see things today, not just with your Labour hat on, but also as an ex-serviceman.
I think the rise in anti-Semitism is particularly concerning for me. There was once a rabbi that stated that it never stops with anti-Semitism. Hatred can start with anti-Semitism, but it never necessarily stops. And the rise of that in the UK is particularly troubling, given the fact that the Holocaust, one of the worst atrocities in the world, was part of the reason why these sacrifices were made in order to prevent hatred like that happening. So yes, to see it in certain areas of the UK is troubling. We have a polarisation of opinions sometimes, and also the information that people form their opinions on, sadly this week has been proven, when we look at the reports by the BBC, has misinformed a lot of people. International situations and the way they are reported on does inform people's opinions and the way they will think about those certain things. For example, the Maccabi Tel Aviv, I want people of all nations and all religions to be able to come here freely and support sport. And I think the reason behind why that has come to pass in that decision is a very sad day for our country, that if you are Jewish or Israeli, it is not safe, or you are not permitted to come and support your team here. And that is not a Britain I want to be in. But that doesn't mean that I haven't given up hope on this country, because I think a lot of work is being done to fight that. We've seen a lot more measures in place to do so.
Let me take this up with Aubrey. One of the things we've seen in modern politics, not only in Britain, is that many people feel that the metropolitan elite does and says and thinks one set of things which are quite different from the mass of people. Do you think there are people out there today, possibly not tuned in, who just think that what we're seeing here is a pastiche of national unity, whereas actually what's going on in our country is that more and more we're being forced to talk about divisions?
There's a tension, really, that's become more and more evident between tolerance and allowing intolerance. And so I think some of the issues we've just been talking about are that tension between a sort of free and liberal society which allows free speech and allows protests and marches versus those protests and marches sort of preaching hatred or intolerance. And that's what we've seen sort of surface. So yeah, certainly this parade is really important. It's a reminder that no matter what else is going on in the country or the world, that there are some unifying bonds. And it's always so nice. It's not just about Remembrance Sunday, it's the weeks building up to it where you start to see people wearing a poppy and you start to sort of feel as though Remembrance Sunday is coming around the corner. It does make you sort of feel as though there are actually a few weeks building up to this where the nation is being brought together in a way that it isn't. So I don't think it's a pastiche completely, but certainly it doesn't quash all of the questions about the wider identity issues.
And let me just emphasise once more, I know I labour this point, that so many Sikhs, Hindus and Muslims died for the British Empire during the Second World War and during the First World War as well. I mean, this really should be a unifying moment because we're remembering people of so many different faiths.
Yes, but I think the waters have been muddied because we've had a recent period, probably the last 10 years, of a degree of what can only be described as wokery, where we're all meant to be self-flagellating for what has been a checkered but equally illustrious history for Great Britain. And if you're going to have a narrative around us constantly apologising for the things of the past and have ludicrous debates over Winston Churchill's performance in the Second World War and his history and see him out of context and start having sort of apologist, revisionist history in schools and universities, not to mention recent events concerning a great deal of ignorance, frankly, displayed by academics and students about, for instance, the Gaza conflict, then it does make things difficult when it comes to people coming together and seeing the point in this. Seeing the point in it, Stuart, not least a TikTok generation that doesn't necessarily focus on these sorts of very important commemorations, which take up some time, take up some energy, and require some deep understanding of our past.
I think it's about reflection and introspection of that, and you're very right. We should not be apologetic for the role that we played in the Second World War and the defence of freedom. Security is an important aspect, and the security that enabled to happen in the world is very important afterwards. And when we consider security in a modern sense, as I said to you earlier, the war on terror formed my worldview as a young person and my desire to go and serve. And I did some incredible things during that service, and I'm proud of that. And you're absolutely right. When we look at certain world security issues, such as what you've referenced on Gaza, if that was Britain and we had a security threat like that next to us, where extremism was pervading, we would not be comfortable with that risk. And I think I would ask anybody today who is watching this programme to consider if we could have that extremism within our society or on the borders of it and be comfortable with that there. I know I certainly couldn't be certain with that risk.
Very interesting reflection. Thank you very much to our panel, Aubrey Allegretti and Councillor Stuart Fawcett. We'll be back soon. Talk to you some more shortly.
And coming up, we're going to be speaking to the SAS veteran Matthew Hellier, who'll be with us in the studio to reflect on today's events. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Royal British Legion is launching the Poppy Appeal to raise funds to support the armed forces community.
Well, the launch will be held at Frameless, where veterans supported by the RBL will share their stories amid a spectacular, immersive poppy landscape projection.
Well, the appeal will encourage the nation to wear a poppy to send a personal message of thanks to those who serve.
Well, let's talk to our national reporter, Will Godley.
And this is all part of the Royal British Legion's fundraising, this Poppy Appeal, happening from now until Armistice Day on, of course, 11th of November, raising money for the armed forces community. They're hoping to raise £50 million to support the some 7,000 veterans, family members and armed forces. And when you were in Afghanistan, that's when your military career came to an unexpected end, wasn't it? What happened there?
So I was the point man in a foot patrol, and unfortunately I was involved in an explosion which subsequently took my hearing from my left ear, and due to that I was forced to leave the army for medical reasons.
And since then, Jason, you've been supported by the Royal British Legion. What kind of support have they offered for you?
Well, it's a vast array of support, really. It can be financial, you know, mental health. They can signpost you for different various charities and support that, you know, as veterans that we really essentially do need, you know, to rebuild our lives and get to a better point, you know, and be positive in our lives and know that we've got that hand on our shoulder when it's needed.
And I can hear you sounding a little bit emotional talking about it. What kind of a difference has that made, that support, on your life?
Oh, it's massive, you know, you can't really... It's not something you can put into words.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
No one could say anything.
Yeah.
And
welcome back to GB News.
Hoyle was in
Remembrance Sunday. You're seeing the scenes unfolding there outside the Cenotaph as 10,000 veterans continue to march past through the capital. And joining us in the studio is Matthew Hellier. Matt, he's CEO of the Pilgrim Bandits, but more importantly, an Army veteran with over 25 years military service. As a parachute regiment recruit, he was awarded both the Prince of Wales badge and Champion Recruit. You successfully passed, Matt, your UKSF selection and reached the rank of warrant officer in the SAS, which quite frankly sounds extremely impressive. You served in every conflict over the past 3 decades, completing over 400 operations.
Most extraordinary, Matt. It's wonderful to have you on GB News on Remembrance Sunday. You're wearing about 10 medals.
Correct, yeah.
Would you like to tell us about those that you're able to tell us about?
A lot of the medals here are operational service medals, so which are issued for each theatre of war that we or theatre of conflict that we serve in. So we have Northern Ireland, Sierra Leone, Afghanistan, Iraq, West Africa, and then we have a couple of commemorative medals, some operational service, length of service in theatres, and obviously a long service good conduct medal, so I never got caught.
Were you in Bosnia as well?
We was in Bosnia.
I'm asking because I was in charge in those days.
Yeah, I quite remember.
You did certain operations.
Certain operations.
Very discreet of you indeed. 400 operations. What constitutes an operation? I mean, does an operation necessarily mean danger or not?
Of course it means danger.
It does.
In Special Forces and the Parachute Regiment, most of the things we do are dangerous. So an operation is a mission under our criteria. And put it into context, everyone remembers the embassy siege in 1980. Obviously, that was before my time, but that is Operation Nimrod. So each one of those constitutes an operation.
Right.
And when we was deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq, we would undertake 3 of those operations a night, and sometimes more.
That is breathtaking. And changing the tone, what sort of people are you remembering today, on this Remembrance Sunday?
We have, on one of our operations, one of our deployments, we lost 10% of our squadron. In an SAS squadron, that's a huge amount of people, plus people that were injured. But all the way back in my family history, I've lost great uncles, I've lost close relatives in wars on foreign lands, supporting this country. And of course, in the present day, I've lost extreme friends, and I still do today. So I remember all of my comrades that are not here with me today. I remember family, I remember friends, and I remember all the civilians as well that have to go through the grief of losing those family members, and I'm one of those.
And Matt, you were diagnosed with kidney cancer in 2013 and you were forced to leave the military a year later. I would imagine, having served in 400 operations and being in the SAS, which is the absolute elite of military service, that it must have been extremely difficult adjusting to civilian life.
Yeah, extremely difficult. And, you know, the military itself is geared around looking after soldiers and who are injured through battle. So some people like myself who have illnesses and ailments that threaten their life, it's a bit of a challenge for the military, you know. And when I put that up towards the MOD and the military and my chain of command, they sort of looked at me and said, well, you go on the NHS. And to me, that was pretty hard to take after spending and giving 25 years of my life to the military, you know, and to be told that. But, you know, I'm a sort of well-rounded individual, and I know that our military and our MOD are geared around protecting civilians. So we have to take on another fight, and that was a fight that I took on personally.
Our previous guest, Stuart Fawcett, was saying that the military had taught him resilience. He needed it. He was injured. Do you feel that the resilience you'd learned in the military helped you to cope with having to leave the military?
I tell you about, people talk about resilience, but they don't really know what resilience is, and I talk about it a lot.
Good.
And resilience is, I'm the CEO of the Pilgrim Bandits charity, which looks after some of our most injured and sick individuals in this country. And we're talking limbless individuals, guys with motor neurone disease. And when I get out of bed in the morning, you know, it's tough. I get out of bed, I'm quite lazy. But when my comrades with no legs get out the leg, they have to get out of bed an hour before me. They have to do administration on their stumps. They have to look after themselves before they present themselves to the world. So to me, getting out of bed every morning is not a chore for me, but it is for my comrades. That is resilience. When you are injured and you must get out of bed, you must face the world with the injuries you have been subjected to, protecting our civilians in this country and our freedom. Now, that is true resilience. So resilience doesn't even come in it to me.
It's even more significant when people are being injured in the course of duty, fighting for crown and country.
Yeah.
Organisations like yours are brilliant, and we know that the charitable sector does so much for ex-servicemen and women. But is that because the government simply doesn't do enough? We go and look at the scenes in America. I was there relatively recently. You go to a sports event, if there's members of the military, former, past, present, in the crowd, everyone stands, gives them a standing ovation. They're absolutely revered. And yet we heard earlier a great many ex-veterans who are in prison right now, a great many we know are homeless. Are these brave men and women being supported enough by the state?
Well, I can tell you, because it's my area of concern as well. The governments, and as you know, Michael, the governments give a huge amount of money to charities, but that money isn't being spent correctly, in my opinion. There's hundreds of millions of pounds that the government give. Doesn't matter which government it is, they are subjected to give this money. It's controlled by a group of military charities. It needs to be disseminated down to the individuals in need and not given to events or stuff like that. We can look at events once we have cared for all of our veterans. We've taken every veteran off the street. We've made sure every veteran gets the care he deserves, and then we can look at events. The money needs to be spent properly. So there is a huge amount.
If people wanted to support your charity, how would they set about doing that?
They can go online, look at our charity, decide whether they want to support my charity, which is not only a military and blue light, it helps communities. And it's www.pilgrimbandits.org. You can see exactly what we get up to. We're a small charity that punches well above our weight, and we are committed to all of our veterans, communities and blue light services.
Matt, it's probably a rather big question to answer briefly, but what impact did being in the SAS have on your life?
For me, it's a huge impact. It's excitement. You know, I loved every minute of it, but you know, it comes with sacrifice, and I had I've sacrificed the family over this. My first, you know, I had 3 children. Unfortunately, one of my boys died 2 years ago.
I'm sorry.
But I didn't afford him the time that I think he deserved because I was selfish, you know, in supporting and honouring this country, and I thought that was the right thing to do. But really, looking back, I would like to have spent a bit more time with my family. All of our families break down. The divorce rate is huge, and the children suffer a little bit. But that's because we're dedicated to this country. So I hope that people can see the dedication and commitment all of our armed forces give to this country, and they need to be respected.
And despite what you've just said, I think your first reaction when Camilla asked you the question was to say how much you'd enjoyed it, how much you loved it. And that may be a mystery to some viewers. You're constantly in danger, day after day, doing very dangerous things, day after day, losing colleagues, and yet you love it. Explain that.
We love it because you are in... It's almost like being part of the England rugby squad, where we have people that you can rely on 100%. We are running around, you know, fit, we're great individuals, and the work we get into is extremely complex. So it's not just physical, it's absolutely mental as well. So we get given the government's biggest problems to solve. And unfortunately, in this day and age, we're getting persecuted and prosecuted for it. So now, you know, my fight is not with the enemy. My fight is with the government at the moment. And we are trying to create a group through me and through some great individuals that are supported, like Chris Parry, who comes on this programme. And we're creating a group that will bring all groups together so we can educate individuals on why we do the things, the rules of engagement, the chain of command, and we want the support off of the government, and we want the support off of the public. So,
Matthew Hellier, thank you very much indeed.
An outstanding interview, I thought.
Yes, indeed. And do check out Pilgrim Bandits if you would like to make a contribution. Well, coming up next, we are going to be rejoining our reporters as they speak to serving personnel and veterans at Remembrance Sunday events. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Hello there, thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you. Our headlines. The King has led the nation in a 2-minute silence during a Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph. The Prince of Wales, Sir Keir Starmer, and the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch joined King Charles in laying wreaths at the monument. 3 D-Day veterans were amongst those attending the Remembrance Sunday ceremony in Whitehall. The BBC is expected to apologise for the way in which a speech by Donald Trump was edited in an episode of Panorama. It comes after a leaked internal memo said the corporation misled viewers by splicing together separate sections of a speech by the US president in the lead-up to the Capitol Hill riot. The government set to launch an independent review into the growing number of young people who aren't working or studying. It's estimated the number of 16 to 24-year-old NEETs, those not in education, employment or training, has reached 940,000 people, with around a quarter of those blaming disability or long-term sickness. Senators in the US have held a rare Saturday session in an effort to solve the record-breaking US government shutdown. More than 1,400 flights to, from or within the US were cancelled on Saturday, with a further 6,000 delayed. And almost 1 million people have been evacuated as the Philippines braces for Typhoon Fenghuang to make landfall. The storm, which will bring sustained winds of around 115 miles per hour, has been upgraded to a super typhoon. It comes less than a week after more than 200 people were killed in a separate storm. And those are your headlines. We'll have more news at the top of the hour, and we'll be back after this short break.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. We have rain slowly pushing eastwards through the day today. There'll be some brighter skies either side, some fog as well, but generally the next few days the low pressure is going to become dominant. We'll see outbreaks of rain, stronger winds pushing in from the Atlantic as we move through the week ahead. But here's the rain by lunchtime across western parts of England and Wales, stretching up into northeast England, eastern Scotland. The rain pushing only slowly north and eastward, so not really going anywhere very quickly. Brighter skies either side of this with some sunny spells, quite blustery around some western coasts. The winds coming in from the south, so another mild day for everyone, 12 to 15 Celsius. And then into the evening time, the rain continues to push north and eastwards. There's still the risk of some heavy rain across southern parts of England and Wales, particularly South Wales, where there could be some localised flooding. But brighter skies, drier skies across Northern Ireland into western Scotland with some clear spells here and a few showers, but the rain stretching up into Orkney and Shetland into the evening time. Temperatures just starting to dip into single figures where there is some chillier air across northern parts of Scotland. Further outbreaks of rain pushing north and eastwards as we go through this evening and overnight. Bands coming in from the Atlantic as well. So a fairly unsettled night to come. Some of the rain could be heavy at times, but in between there will be some drier periods, and the winds coming in from the south and still fairly brisk, so temperatures remaining in double figures across much of England and Wales, but dipping into single figures across northwest Scotland. An unsettled start to Monday, bands of showers pushing north and eastwards. Some of this will be heavy at times, some gusty winds, but in between there will be some sunny spells. So it's worth having the raincoat with you as you go through the day today, turning particularly showery across England and Wales into the afternoon. A little cooler, temperatures around 14 Celsius.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News. Welcome back to Remembrance Sunday. Joining us now from Belfast is GB News Northern Ireland reporter Dougie Beattie.
Well, good morning to you, and such a lovely service that was had here. And you've heard me mention all morning how much Northern Ireland gives to the British Army. And one such man that left these shores at 17 years of age and became the Sergeant Major of 3 para during the Falklands conflict was John Ross. John, explain to us, why did you join up?
I joined up really through playing football with 1 para when they were stationed on the Shankill Road, and it was a hearts and minds thing. And I was impressed with the guys. I'd always wanted to join the army, so when I came at 17 and went down to York Street to the recruiting office, 10.5 stone ringing wet at the time, I asked the guy, a bit embarrassed, that I wanted to join the parachute regiment.
And what did you see in the Falklands? What battle were you involved in?
I was 3 para. At the time I was 5 platoon sergeant, and we were involved in Mount Longdon. Mount Longdon was the bloodiest land battle of the Falklands. We lost 23 men killed that night and 48 wounded.
I mean, how do you deal with that as a man in command? I mean, what age were these men?
The youngest was 17, and we had a young lad killed on his 18th birthday. At the time, you've got to go on. At the time, you've got to go on. And I can remember when we'd got some of our wounded in behind the rocks, the medics were treating them, and a young man on his 18th birthday died while he was being treated. And it's hard, it's emotional, but you know you've got to go on. you know.
And one of them was a Jewish lad.
Young Jason Burt, yes, 17 years old. And he, a tremendous young lad, tremendous potential, who would have done really well in the parachute regiment. He was killed. He was actually killed in the same incident that Ian Mackay, VC, was killed.
Thank you for your service, John, and really I hope that the rest of your life goes well for you, and thank you for protecting Britain and giving time to come here to us today. So there you go. I mean, that is a commander in a real life battle and the things that he had to see and deal with.
Thank you very much indeed, Doogie. What a great interview. Thank you for your service, John. I mean, this is the other thing we forget, that people are putting themselves in harm's way, but they're also in command of very young men. 17, got a daughter who's 17, out in conflict.
When you go to the Commonwealth war graves, you go past the graves and they record the age of death, and it's so often 20 or under. It's heartbreaking.
Well, joining us now from Parliament Square is GB News' national reporter, Will Godley. Will.
Yeah, good afternoon to you both. It's a very different atmosphere to what it was like 90 minutes ago, of course, when that 2 minutes silence was held. Now, you can have a look over my shoulder. There's people applauding, cheering, the thousands of veterans and current service personnel marching past the cenotaph and past where we are standing here at the moment. 90 minutes ago, of course, a very silent, sombre moment as the nation's capital here outside Westminster fell silent. And on the order of service, people here were suggested to think about the great sacrifice made by people during the two world wars, but also to pray for peace in the future. And it's not just members of the public here, but also veterans as well. I'm joined now by Marcus Jones. 30 years you spent in the army. You just retired earlier this year. How does it feel to be here today?
It's an honour. It's an honour. I've come to a few before, but this is the first time as a true veteran. And it's just about paying your respect to people that have been before me, really.
And being amongst thousands of people, not just veterans, but members of the public as well, how emotional does it make you feel as you remember people you served with?
A lot. There's a lot of people here that are just trying to get their heads around what today is. Obviously, they ask a lot of questions to veterans like myself, and it's good to just educate people on why we're here for this moment in time.
Very important, Marcus. Thanks for joining us on GB News. Well, it's not just wreaths laid at the cenotaph. I can tell you 80 years on from World War II, wreaths also laid at the foot of the Churchill statue here in Westminster as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Will. And we can cross the short distance now from Parliament Square to Horse Guards Parade. And there we find GB News national reporter Jack Carson. Jack.
Thank you very much. Of course, after they've walked by Will and walked by the cenotaph and laid those wreaths, and they come back round here to Horse Guards Parade and they give the salute to the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Edward, who we can see there on the platform with the Defence Secretary, John Healey, as well, them giving their respects. Of course, Duke of Edinburgh taking the salute from these veterans, from these serving personnel who are very proudly, and we've spoken to so many of them today, haven't we, about how they feel being here today, how much of a proud moment it is for them today. And interestingly, we've seen the Defence Minister, Al Carnes, also marching here past the Duke of Edinburgh. Of course, there was a big significance because last year he became the first time a sitting Defence Minister had done the march past the cenotaph. Of course, he himself, Al Carnes, is a former Royal Marine officer who served 5 tours in Afghanistan, and once again this year last year called it a huge honour, and once again this year he's taken part, and we can just see the huge numbers here. 10,000 people, of course, in total have taken part today. All of them, this moment of immense pride for them to give the salute to the Duke of Edinburgh.
Thank you so much, Jack Carson. Well, we've only got time for a few final thoughts from Aubrey Allegretti of The Times and Stuart Fawcett, a veteran, now a Labour councillor. Stuart.
I think today shows something very important, which is the social contract that we have with members of the armed forces and why this is so important. It's not just about remembering today, which is critical, but also about the way we have a relationship with those who have served throughout the rest of their life. It may have started when they were in the Cadets, which is a great organisation I was a part of, or all the way through, perhaps you would have seen the Chelsea pensioners today.
Yes.
And I think that foundation of that social contract is really important. And if you are a veteran and you need help, the Armed Forces Covenant is there for you, and you can seek help by going online and looking for that there. So that does exist, and I think today it's really important that we remember that.
Aubrey.
Well, I've been trying to sort of think ahead to the next few weeks, and Keir Starmer is obviously travelling to the G20, where he'll meet with leaders of other countries. But I think Remembrance Day does remind us that we're not just thinking about wars that have passed, but also conflicts ongoing and the ability of the UK to try and prevent future conflicts. And there is obviously still a significant discussion happening in government about defence spending, which Keir Starmer's pledged to raise to 2.5% by the end of this Parliament and then 3% in the next. But people will be wondering, is it enough and is it soon enough? And given obviously that the Prime Minister will be meeting some of the big world leaders, so including people, President Xi Jinping in China and others who are, very big global actors, I think he's got big questions to answer about how he's going to fund the uplifted defence spending, and ultimately whether or not he sees that as an investment. People always say invest in defence because it's much cheaper than the war that you might inevitably face after. So given we've heard lots of warnings, including from the Chief of the Defence Staff today, about the possibility of future conflict, I suspect Keir Starmer's thinking about that going into the G20.
Of course, measuring spending is entirely the wrong measurement. What we ought to measure is capability. That's the only thing that matters. Thank you very much indeed to our panel, Aubrey and Stuart, and thank you very much to our reporters on the ground.
Welcome. Coming up next, we're going to be joined by Mitch Hutchcraft, the veteran who completed the longest ever ascent of Mount Everest in its history, and he's going to be accompanied by a dog. We should never work with children and animals, but we're going to make an exception, Michael.
This is Remembrance Sunday on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Not much sunshine across the central and eastern Mediterranean. Heavy showers and thunderstorms expected here. But elsewhere across northern Europe, mostly dry, settled with some sunshine. Though we are expecting some showers on Monday across parts of Portugal, also northern areas of France. These could turn heavy at times. And as we drift our way eastwards across the Mediterranean, turning more and more unsettled, some heavy showers and thunderstorms here. Into next week, we should see more sunshine, and alongside the sun, there should be some warm temperatures too.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Sun reports the former Duke of York has been given 3 months to move out of Royal Lodge and take his 72 teddy bears with him.
The Times also leads on the former Prince Andrew, claiming that he quit his fight to stay in Royal Lodge after losing the loyalty of his ex-wife.
Telegraph says Sir Keir Starmer was under pressure from his own MPs to remove Andrew from the royal line of succession.
And the Daily Mail claims the Prince and Princess of Wales. They're the ones who really pushed for Andrew to be ousted.
And The Guardian, it's another Andrew one, I'm afraid, talking about the six-figure sum and annual stipend that he might be getting.
Well, joining us to go through what's making the sense of this is writer and podcaster Lewis Oakley and Susan Holder, author and journalist. And let's start with the mounting pressure on Sir Keir Starmer from his own MPs to do more to remove Andrew from the royal line of succession.
Don't waste your time. At the end of the day, the country is in a mess. We've got, poverty, we've got appalling rape convictions, we've got, cost of loan crisis. Focus on the real problems. This is so speculative, and in the future, it's done. Just
What they
leave
should
it.
have done is when they got involved before, in 2013, when they did the Succession to the Crown Act, which changed you going in age, in gender order, it goes in age order, which actually doesn't make any difference to what's coming, because very cleverly, Kate had George, Charlotte, and then Louis.
Very clever of her.
But they didn't backdate it. If they'd backdated it, it would have gone to Anne, and Andrew would have been way, 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 way down. And that's what they should have done, but they didn't, and there probably was no need to. But it always works out better for us as a country, doesn't it, than when we have a queen. So actually,
yeah, we're very good with
Queen. Elizabeth I, Victoria, Elizabeth II.
GB News, the People's Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Smiles on our faces, because joining us now is Royal Marines veteran and adventurer Mitch Hutchcraft. But more importantly, Mitch, and we know you are important, is your little companion here, your canine companion, Teddy.
Yeah.
So sweet. Tell us what you're doing. You're climbing mountains, you're running, you're swimming, and you're doing it with a dog.
Yeah, well, last time I was here was with Buddy, my golden retriever, who joined me for the first 2,000 kilometre of my 13,000 kilometre triathlon from England to Everest. But this time we got back and we've just got a rescue dog, but Teddy, who's inspired our next adventure, our next charity expedition in aid of rescue dogs. So, yeah.
I'm going to slow you down a tiny bit.
Absolutely,
there.
that's
You
fine.
said fairly quickly 13,000 kilometres.
Yeah.
So tell me about the stages of that.
So, yeah, so it was 6 months tomorrow, 6 months ago to the day, was on summit of Everest and completed the longest climb of Mount Everest in history. So it was 13,157 kilometres, which started with a swim across the English Channel and then a 12,000 kilometre bike ride across 18 countries to sea level in India, and then a 1,300 kilometre run and hike and climb from sea level to the top of Mount Everest. So it was the first triathlon to the top of the world and also the longest climb of Everest in history, which was for a great veterans charity called SABSIM, which makes mental health courses using wildlife and nature. And I studied zoology, massive animal lover myself, and now I've been back 6 months and we've just come across and rescued Teddy. It inspired our next little venture.
I mean, the trip you undertook, the 13,000 kilometres, medical experts said it was impossible.
Well, a lot of people said to me, a lot of experts said they're not sure if it's possible. You know, the question was that, you know, after a nearly an 8,000-mile triathlon, would the human body then be capable of then climbing Everest? I lost 18 kilos, nearly died many times. The hardest day was on day one, actually, 18 and a half hours across the channel. That was just day one of 237. But we made it in the end. It was for a great cause, and we kind of defied possible to show the most important message of my entire kind of expedition, that the only person that knows what's possible is looking in the mirror.
And Mitch, is that something that you learned when you were in the Royal Marines? Just link this to your military background.
I mean, the mindset that's forged in the Marines or in any military, as you know, as we're here on Remembrance Day, it's such a special thing we do, and the mindset and the things we learn, cheerfulness in the face of adversity, all these lessons, being able to smile, being comfortable, being uncomfortable, all these lessons, these amazing lessons that the military teaches us. For me, it was a foundation which helped me through all my expeditions, and if it wasn't for my time in the Marines, it would have been a heck of a lot harder, the expedition. Who knows whether I would have made it, so I'm really thankful for the time I had.
Did it start with you rowing the Atlantic?
Yeah, so I left in 2021.
Yes, you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rode the Atlantic along with other things.
The first expedition was with 3 amazing guys rowing unsupported for 7 weeks across the Atlantic, which is where I had the idea for climbing Everest, but from England. So I always wanted to swim the Channel. I always wanted to climb Everest from sea level, and I just had a light bulb moment where I thought, let's link the middle bit together. So we'll swim to France, then we'll cycle across the world, and then we'll run and climb Everest from England. Just in the kind of, for me, combining all my childhood dreams in it's just the biggest adventure of all time, but also to raise money for an amazing cause whilst doing so.
What's the hardest aspect of that? The swimming,
by far
the cycling,
by far, day number one. Yeah,
Why?
I knew it would be the hardest. Well, 5 times more people nearly have summited Everest than have swam the Channel. It's so hard, so long, and it was just the hardest day of my life. My tongue was dissolving, my shoulder had seized, I'd inhaled so much water I was nearly drowning, and to get through that, I couldn't barely move for 5 days after that. To then have to get on the bike and to begin a 12,000-kilometre bike ride was took a lot of resilience, which the Marines helped shape. That's for sure.
Is that the nearest you've come to death?
I mean, no, to be honest, the closest was on the bike ride. Nearly 4.5, 5 months of cycling 10 hours a day across the world, through India, Pakistan, Iraq, so many places. I was knocked off my bike, chased by dogs, but I've come this close. The closest I've come is definitely from kind of having to avoid head-on trucks and lorries, skidding last second away. So I'd say even more so than Everest and the Channel, cycling across some of these countries I had a few moments there which was definitely much closer.
And a few punches, I would imagine, Mitch.
A fair few.
On December the 2nd, you're embarking on marathons.
Yes, so inspired by Teddy, it's going to be 16 back-to-back speed marches and marathons from the lowest point to the highest point in the UK. So I'm from Peterborough area, so 2 miles from where I went to school. It's actually the lowest point of the UK. So I love a challenge in the mountains. So I thought, let's run and speed march from the lowest to the highest point in the UK, 700 kilometres. Works out about 16 marathons, all to try and get as many dogs rescued as possible. We're partnering with dog rescue centres along the way, inviting hundreds of people. Anyone that's listening, come and join us on the route to join with your dogs. Make it the Forrest Gump of dog walks, to get the message out there that adopt, not shop. That's the main message. You know, there's so many dogs that need rescued now, and coming up to Christmas, our most important message is so many thousands of dogs are needing homes. We fell in love with this boy, and he was just one of 28 that was rescued from this one place, and they've got so much love to give. So yeah, combining my kind of love for challenges with trying to get as many of these dogs rescued is the main message, because there's so much love to give.
Oh,
I'm not sure we've held Teddy's interest.
I know.
But you certainly held
Teddy
the viewers'
seems
interest.
chilled.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Extraordinary,
Thank you so
and all the best of luck,
Thanks,
Mitch, honestly.
Mitch Hutchcraft. Thanks to all our guests and viewers for joining us today. It has been a privilege, I think, for both Camilla and me to hear the Remembrance Day stories and to share those scenes coming from the cenotaph. It's been extraordinary.
It's been a very, very poignant and moving day. We will, of course, be back on our normal times next week, so 9:30 for me on The Camilla Tominey Show, 11 a.m. for Sunday with Michael Portillo. Up next on GB News is Dawn Neeson.
You could win your entire Christmas on us this year, all magically delivered to you in time for the big day. There's cash, £30,000 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also a further £10,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £1,000 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag, so there's something for everyone under the tree. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB17 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 28th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too.
From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News.